Here as soon as that switches to 9 o'clock. And just remember that we are hot live on YouTube the minute I start talking, okay?
Understood.
Yeah, so I'm going to try this right now. And good evening, everybody on YouTube. Welcome to our first broadcast on YouTube. We finally got the technology going. We're going to get the show going in about 6 minutes. Our guest tonight is Terry Lovelace, an incredible story of ET contact, ET implants, and it's the real deal. And Terry's actually with me right now, and we're just kind of hanging out and just kind of going to go through a few things here because I am learning this. Okay, so I'm going to be working with the camera angle over the next few nights. I'm not sure I like where it is right now, but we are going to be working with it. And we're going to be starting at 9 o'clock on YouTube. Do me a favor. If you haven't watched the show before, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. We'd greatly appreciate that as well. And don't forget, our website is spacedoutradio.com, a great way to support us. We got the super chat going. We have a number of other things going as well. So if you go on our website, we'd really appreciate if you go to our SOR vault, grab yourself a Spaced Out Radio t-shirt. You know, this is how we do this. This is how we support what we do, and we can't do it without you guys. So, you know, it's a great way to support things. You could also join the Space Travelers Club for a minimal $5 a month. We'd greatly appreciate that as well. So tonight is going to be a little bit different from what we are normally doing. Friday nights we do the live AMA, and you know, I just want to make sure that everybody is cool with what is going on, and hopefully I haven't screwed anything up. I'm not sure that I have or not, but hopefully we haven't. Terry, how you doing, man?
I couldn't be better. I'm thrilled to be on Spaced Out Radio.
Me too. I actually, and we'll do this in the interview too, but I actually got to meet Terry a couple weeks ago. Oh goodness, like 10 days ago already. Hard to believe. At UFO Con in San Francisco. So that was a great time. Terry is just a fantastic guy, a highly educated person. And tonight we're gonna learn something. We're gonna learn something really, really cool. And you know, hey, you guys all on YouTube get to come along for the ride, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're very much looking forward to it. If the audio screws up or if anything screws up during the show, I don't know if I will have time to fix it because I'm a one-man gang around here and I'm having to run the radio side of things. I'm having to run absolutely everything. So let's just be patient with me. There might be some screw-ups tonight, especially on the YouTube side. So please bear with me. I hope you don't mind. So, yeah. Now we just get to hang out, Terry, for like a couple of minutes before we actually launch this thing, man.
Great. I'm ready.
Me too. I'm kind of excited about this because I have such a face for radio. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. So, you know, my voice is a little different than what it normally is because I'm just getting over or trying to get over a cold here, and let's see here. You know, I think we're going to do all right. I think we're going to do all right tonight. So I'm looking forward to it. This is one of those conversations, Terry. I'm going to tell you right now, man, I've been looking forward to it. I've been really, really looking forward to it.
I've been looking forward to the opportunity to address your audience and engage them and entertain them and inform them. All of the above.
For sure, man. For sure. It's going to be a fantastic time. And, you know, if people see me kind of looking around, wondering, you know, why is my head bobbing this way and this way and this way? It's mainly because I've got the YouTube computer running on my left. Straight ahead of me, I have my main board where everything is kind of underway. On my right here, my extreme right, I have my big screen. I can't really show you right now. and then I have my other player. So I got like 4 screens going here at the same time. So you guys can just, don't mind the fact that I didn't shave today. How about that? All right.
Yeah, me neither.
All right. So we've got the one feed going now for the radio side. All right. And remember for our YouTube people that during the commercial breaks, because we are still working on some audio stuff, you will hear the commercials, but you'll hear Terry and I chatting as well. So, we're gonna try and make things as easy as possible, a little bit smoother as we go along in time. But hey, the main thing is we got this going tonight. All right. Let's see here. Where are we? I should probably go and... No, wrong group. Wrong group. That would be the group I want right there. Let's see who's in here. Oh, goodness. The music's on. I missed my cue on the music, huh? Here we go, Terry. From the top of the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio, Revolution Radio, and brand new tonight, we are live on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning us in. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. Grab a great book from We Read Tonight. Join the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month, and Captain Shirk has you all up to date on the SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by CHIVE Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to CHIVE Charities today. You can find them on our website. Best-selling author Terry Lovelace is a 64-year-old lawyer and former assistant attorney general. In 2012, a routine x-ray found an anomalous bit of metal the size of a fingernail with 2 tiny wires attached to it inside his body. We're going to get into that tonight. Terry's book, Inside a Devil's Den, tells his true account of a hostile alien abduction in June of 1977. While on active duty in the United States Air Force, Terry and a friend were wilderness camping in the Arkansas State Park when this incident occurred. To get the book, go to Terry's website, which is terrylovelace.com. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I am going to bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Terry Lovelace, it was such a pleasure to meet you just a couple of weeks ago at UFOCon 2020. You're a hell of a gentleman. I am so excited to bring your story to our listeners tonight. Thank you for taking the time.
Likewise, I appreciate the opportunity.
Terry, let's learn a little bit about you. You're an educated man. You're a former lawyer, or a current lawyer, former attorney general, I believe, in the state of Vermont. And this is something that people of your education, of your stature, of your place in the community aren't supposed to be talking about aliens and UFOs, man.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is something I kept secret for 40 years. Just between my wife and I. I retired from the law in 2012. I got the opportunity to retire early, and I took it. And retired in January. In October, I had some pain in my leg. I went to the I get all my health care through the VA. So I went to the VA, and they x-rayed my leg. And I had what was called a Baker cyst. Nothing to do with baking. It was, found by a guy named Baker. Nothing to do with any of the odd things in my leg. It's just like a cyst thing that I developed, and it's benign, and it, makes it difficult to walk for a couple of weeks, and it goes away on its own. But when they were X-raying my leg, they found two anomalies. They found this thing looks like a computer chip with the wires attached above my knee. And then below my knee in my calf muscle, there's an arrangement of about 6 little tic-tac-like items in a floral pattern. And I'll tell you, when I saw that X-ray, I had no intention of ever really writing a book or going public with this. But let me back up just a bit. I was a runner all my life. Gave it up in about 2005. I walk now. So, but over those 40 years that I ran, about every time I would hit the 2-mile mark in my run, there was a spot above my knee and lateral to the right that would go completely numb. And it was, about 1 inch in diameter, and it was perfectly round, and I could take a pin and, delineate the edges of it. And I asked my doctor, I said, I got this weird thing that goes numb in my knee when I run, when I hit my 2-mile mark, give or take 50 yards. And she's like, it's probably some hystemic type reaction. She said, I wouldn't worry about it. So I didn't. And then I saw that X-ray, and it kind of, it was like a slap in the face. I mean, it really came home that these things had put their hands on me, and that was just a turning point. So prior to this, I'd had 40 years worth of nightmares,
Yes,
PTSD like symptoms, intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, those type of things. But seeing the X-rays really changed things and motivated me to write a book and tell people. And if my peers in the legal community think I'm crazy, I don't care. This is the truth, and it's a truth that should be told. People should know.
Terry, prior to this incident in Arkansas in 1977, what did you know about UFOs?
A little. When I was 8 years old, I was living in St. Louis, Missouri, kind of in an urban environment, South St. Louis City, brick row houses. And I'm in the backyard, and I'm playing with this bow and arrow or something, and I'm loading an arrow into the notch of the bowstring. And this is a crowded neighborhood. It's a nice May day, and women are out hanging up laundry, and kids are running around, and there's dogs, and there's cats, and there's cars, and it's loud. And I look down, and I see this perfect circular shadow move across my feet. And I look up, and directly over my head is this aluminum or highly polished metal saucer that's about 30 feet in diameter, about 50 feet over my head. And it was just wobbling a little bit in the breeze. And I was just awestruck. I thought, wow, it was beautiful in the way, a new Alfa Romero is on a showroom floor. It was just spectacular to look at. And I remember feeling really badly. I couldn't see that. I really wanted to see the top of it, And so that and when as soon as I looked up, I had a weird auditory change, and that it felt like I put my hands over my ears, and all of the sounds of the neighborhood were muffled. And I don't know how long I looked at it, but I just stared at it in awe. And then it kind of listed a little bit and shot off to clear the power lines, and went from like 0 to 500 miles an hour, and it's gone. And the second it took off, all of the auditory, all the sounds came back to normal, just came flooding in. And I scream, "Mom!" And my mother comes out, thinking I probably, shot a neighbor in the head with an arrow or something. And, she comes out, she checks me for blood, because I'm hysterical, and I'm told later. And she said I wouldn't stop screaming. And I guess that's true, because my throat was sore afterward. And I'm like, "Mom, did you see it? Did you see it? It was really cool. It was a flying saucer, like you see on TV." And I was a pretty straight kid. I didn't lie. I didn't make up stuff. And And she says, Terry, I don't know what you saw, but you did not see a flying saucer. So she had to get out an encyclopedia and go through dirigibles and, airplanes and jets and, was it this, was it that? I'm like, no. Well, can you draw it? Sure, give me a piece of paper. I drew a circle and handed it back to her. So then my dad got involved. And he said, you can't tell people. I mean, this is, 1963. It's a little bit of a different time. And he says, you can't tell people you saw a flying saucer. They'll think there's something wrong with you. They'll think there's something wrong with us,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can, and take us back to that time where, that's actually a real important statement that you just made, Terry, that your dad said that people will think there is something wrong with us. I mean, for us now, we can understand that, but the UFO aspect of everything is really coming to fruition where a lot more people are believing. But go back 45 years, that wasn't the case, was it?
No, not at all. And it's kind of a contradiction because on television you had My Favorite Martian and Lost in Space and cartoons like Space Ghost and My Favorite Martian. There were a lot of UFO themed sitcoms and television shows, but they were like my Uber driver said, taking me to the airport to come to San Francisco. He says, "Oh, UFOs, that's comic book stuff." And I think that was kind of the mentality that it was just all fiction, and people are coming to learn that it's not all fiction.
Did your parents ever come around?
No, they never did. Although my dad, would never admit it, but he had a fascination with UFOs. And when I was about 12, there was a UFO sighted over St. Louis, Missouri, and it was. I saw it. My dad saw it. It was. It looked like it was shaped like a 7-Up bottle, and it was green like a 7-Up bottle, and it was glowing, and it was in the air, and it was. I'm not good at. I don't know how big it was, so it's difficult to say how high it was. But it wasn't moving like a balloon. It was moving like, erratically, like outside the bounds of physics erratically. And we only saw it for a few seconds, and it shot off. But that was pretty cool. Of course, my dad was convinced it was something from the Russians, or at least that's what he told me. Yeah, I think he knew better.
Terry, how long, do you consider yourself an experiencer?
I consider myself an abductee, and I know it's just, a slight difference. A lot of people prefer that. I prefer to say to be an abductee just because I think it's more accurate. I was taken against my will, and that's an abduction or a kidnapping under the law, whatever you want to call it. It's a crime. And I was abducted. Granted, it was what I experienced in 1963 in my backyard at St. Louis with the flying saucer. That was an experience. That was a visual and an auditory and just an overwhelming experience. And had that been my only experience, then I think it'd be safe to call myself an experiencer. But my interaction with E.T. went to the next step, and 1977. My friend and I were abducted, and so that's why I prefer the term abductee.
I'm an abductee as well, and that is something that I don't know if I'm proud of it or not. It's one of those cool beer conversations on a Friday night when there's nothing left to talk about. Let me tell you, I'm sure you know about that all too well. But is this something that you, over the years, because of your position and your place in the law as a lawyer and then as a former assistant attorney general, that you really had to keep quiet over?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a secret my wife and I shared. I've been married to my wife. We got married, young, and we've been married 45 years. She was with me whenever I was abducted. Well, we were together. She wasn't with me. So she she knows what I came home and what I was like, and she's been with me for the 2 or 3 screaming nightmares I have every year. Where I wake up sweating and have to turn every light on in the house, and yeah. It's also good validation-wise to have someone that can attest to the validity of what I went through, because she was there. Like I say, she was there and there for support.
Was she an ET abductee before meeting you?
No. As a matter of fact, she's only had one experience, and that was in 1987. And she woke up and reached over and noticed I wasn't in bed. And she looked out at the foot of the bed, and silhouetted against the window was this, what she took to be a 3.5-foot tall Asian woman. And she wasn't freaked out. I mean, normally she would yell intruder or pull a gun out or something. But no, she was perfectly calm. And this woman spoke to her telepathically, and my wife swears she heard her voice just with crystal clarity in her skull, in her head. She heard this woman say, "Everything's fine, go back to sleep." And that's what she did. She went back to sleep.
My goodness.
And,
how often have the experiences happen?
Like I say, that's her one and only, other than I've seen a lot of UFOs. I've photographed a lot of UFOs. I see them in the sky sometimes, and I'll point them out to her. Sometimes she sees them. Sometimes she can't see them, which I don't understand. But as far as abduction scenarios, 1977 was it. With the exception maybe of April 16th of 2019, I had an odd event. I sleep with my iPhone in my pocket of my T-shirt at night, and I hook it up to some headphones, and I listen to, meditation stuff off of YouTube, and because my battery's bad, I keep it plugged into the wall outlet, and I woke up the morning of April 16th, 2019, just woke up freaked out, in a sweat, and out of breath. I mean, like I just ran 100 yards. And I told my wife, I think I'm having a heart attack. And she called an ambulance, and the guys got there, and they took my blood pressure. It was like 220 over 110. My pulse was, tachycardic through the roof. And they put me in the ambulance, gave me some oxygen, took me to the hospital. And the docs there did the usual thing, because I'd had a heart attack in 2005, so I know the drill, EKG, cardiac enzymes, and do a couple tests. But by the time I get to the hospital, my pulse rate's back to normal, my blood pressure drops to normal, and I had my breath again, and all my tests came back negative. So they had no explanation for what happened to me. And kept me for about 6 hours for observation, and then sent me home. When I got home later that evening, I told my wife, I said, I feel well enough. I'm going to go out and do my walk. It was about 7:30 in the evening. I said, I'm going to go out and walk a 1.5 miles. So I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket, and for the first time, I looked at my health app, my iPhone health app. And like most people have a health app of some kind on their phone that measures their steps. Well, mine measures your steps, measures the stairs that you climb. And then, like for stairs, it shows a grid, with the y-axis on the left being elevation, with little boxes indicating 10 feet in height. And then the x-axis, the bottom line, going from left to right, indicates passage of time. So I look at my phone, and I was surprised because I saw stairs climbed. And I live in a ranch in Texas with no basement. I don't have any stairs, And my phone says 6 flights of stairs. And I'm like, what? And then I look at the graph, and at 5:24 a.m., there's a bar that goes straight up that shows that I climbed 6 flights of stairs, or was 60 feet over my house, between 5:23 and 5:24 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't wake up until 5:55, 31 minutes later.
Where'd you go?
So I don't know if I sent you that or not, but I've got the health app. I've got the medical bills, to prove that I had the experience. But yeah, I think something happened to me then, and first time in a long, long time.
When something like that happens, Terry, what goes through your mind? How do you feel about having this? You're a man of questions. You've asked a lot of questions over the years in hundreds of courtrooms. So when you have something like this come up, as we got about 3.5 minutes here before we go to break, how do you deal with it?
At first, I'm angry. I'm angry because you snatched me out of my bed. You made me think I'm having a heart attack. It cost me $800 in medical bills. But then again, part of me wonders, and I've had a hypnotic regression with a board-certified psychiatrist here in Dallas, and he regressed me because I really wanted to find out what happened to me that night. And in the regression, I recounted going through the roof, going through the ceiling, out into the air, and going above my house. And it was twilight. It wasn't quite dawn yet. It was still, a little dark outside. And directly over my head was a large saucer, and the bottom of it opened like a camera lens would open. And I went inside of it, and that's when I stopped. And he said, we'll do some more in another session, because to get to that point took a little bit of time, and it was kind of it was interesting, but it was kind of traumatic in a way. That's the first time I'd ever been regressed, and it was interesting and frightening, and I'm not sure that I want to do it again, but I think I probably should. When it's different when I see if I'm walking down the street and I see a UFO, I'm kind of like, hey, how you doing? Up in the air they're benign, but As you know, to be abducted is something different.
I do. And, the weird part about it is, for people who don't understand, I'm sure you'll attest, as we got just over a minute to go, is that sometimes it comes in dreams. Sometimes it comes in some sort of reality that your mind is storing. Do you think these episodes, whether they are either dreams or you're experiencing what you're seeing, do you think that they sometimes cover up what is going on with false memories?
I do. Absolutely. I think there's the reality we see, and then, behind the thinnest of veils, there's, a whole lot going on that human beings aren't equipped. We don't have the sensory ability to see, So, yeah, I think that's right.
It is interesting. When we come back from the break here, I want to ask you, what made you decide to go public? What made you decide to write this book? What made you decide to come out as an experiencer? Because there's a lot of people out there, and I'm sure many are your colleagues who probably said, what the hell happened to Terry? What's with him doing this? Why would he do this? Has he just plain lost it? And I want to ask and find out about that, Terry. So I'm going to get you to hold on right now, because we're going to go to break at the bottom of the hour on Spaced Out Radio. Terry Lovelace inside a Devil's Den. We're going to learn all about his experiences coming up in the next half hour on Spaced Out Radio. All right, there we go.
Oh, by the way, it's instant at Devil's Den.
Inside. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That's right.
All right.
No, fine.
All right, so I'm going to go like that. So now the people shouldn't hear our commercials, but they are going to hear you and I talking on YouTube. And boy, we got a packed house on YouTube for our first time here right now. This is kind of cool. Kind of cool. I'm pretty amazed by this.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty darn cool. Pretty darn cool, and I'm quite surprised by it. To be blunt, I didn't think we would have this much of an audience so far, but apparently we do.
I think people are interested. I've given this a lot of thought, and I think had I published my book 5 years earlier or even 2 years earlier, it would not have been anywhere nearly as well received. I think there's been a change. And what was it, December of 2018, when the New York Times, Leslie Kean, who I know, broke the story about the Tic Tacs, and Lou Elizondo to the Stars Academy, which, by the way, Lou Elizondo and film crew from A&E are going to be at my house Wednesday.
Could you do me a favor?
Yes.
Could you give a little tug on Lou's chin hair for me?
I'll do that.
I would appreciate it. Tell him it's from Dave Scott at Spaced Out Radio, who never seems to get an interview with you guys.
I'll give him a shot at tequila first.
Please do. Please do.
I will. So, fascinating guy.
Oh yeah. I'd like to meet him. I would love to have a beer with Lou Elizondo. I really would. I know I've been very, very critical of the TTSA, and I have my reasons from a media standpoint. And but I can say this: I really want to have a beer with Lou Elizondo. I want to give a shout out here quickly to some people in our chat room. Thank you so much, Pleiadian. I appreciate that. Bob, thank you so much as well. And I know there was one more here, Poetically Mistaken. Thank you for helping out Spaced Out Radio as well. That is really, really cool. Unbelievable. And remember, we normally take questions in hour number 2, YouTube crowd. And so if you have any questions, do me the favor, just post them in capital letters in hour 2. That's when I'll start bringing in your questions into our guest tonight, Terry Lovelace. And we are in for one hell of a story tonight. Oh, I love this story. Absolutely love this story. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully we can make it bigger, because we're going to do this every night now. We're going to do this every night. So, yeah, sorry, I had to get that in there, Terry.
Absolutely. Hey, I was going to mention Lou Elizondo and a team from TTSA came to my house in June of last year, June of 2019. Not for the television show, but just for TTSA's, investigation. And they were there because I had these unmarked helicopters flying over my house. And when I took pictures of the helicopters, and on occasion there were some UFOs in the background. And I sent those. And I got to say, the guys from TTSA, other than Lou, I won't mention any names, but, were nothing but kind to me, and actually pretty helpful to help me obtain some x-rays that the VA wasn't so forthcoming in giving to me.
Really?
So, yeah, I got a high opinion of those guys.
Well, that's good. That is good. Hold on, I gotta turn this down just a little bit here because Mr. Bart L wants me to. Hope that's okay, Bart. All right. And we've got about just over 90 seconds here before we're going to come back on the air.
Sounds good.
All right.
Glad to hear you got a great response.
Yeah, so far it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Well, I'm glad.
It's really nice to be, first guest on the new YouTube thing. That's very cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there.
I think that does that work? Yeah, you guys should be able to hear us on YouTube. I'm hoping. Maybe. Oh, there it is. Okay. I think I got caught in a sarcasm there. I'm pretty sure I got caught in sarcasm. All right, we're down to about 45, 50 seconds. Thanks, Bardell. Appreciate it. Face for radio here, people. Face for radio.
That's right.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's just disgusting. What do you do? What do you do? Hey, Philip, thank you so much. All right, we're about 40 seconds or 30 seconds, pardon me. All right. Way too kind, A. Bauman. Way too kind. Thank you. All right, here we go. Music's on. And here I go. Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thankfully, the snow didn't come today, as it had the previous 3 days. I'm getting sick of the white stuff. It's March. I want flowers. I want blooming. Oh, no, not yet. Not yet. Still sitting under a foot plus of snow. Anyhow, want to remind all of you that if you want to do me a favor and sign up for our YouTube channel, we are now live on every show starting tonight, youtube.com/spaced out radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. All of our archives are there free for you as well. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Make sure you check it on out. We got a plethora of features for you, so make sure you check them on out. Like Bumblefoot, you can rock out to him. You can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and much, much more. Tonight we are talking with a great, great dude, man. I met this guy just a couple of weeks ago. Terry Lovelace is his name, and we're talking about some strange experiences that he has had leading into his book, Inside Devil's Den. And Terry, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate being here.
I want to ask you this, continuing on from where we were the last half hour. What made you come out? Why was it important for you to finally say, look, this happened to me. I want to know what's going on, and I'm now going to go public. I don't care what people think.
It was seeing that X-ray. It was the X-rays that I saw. And I should go into a little more detail about that. You know, I had this X-ray technician, take a couple shots of my leg, and she's like, have you been in an accident or something, or had a shrapnel wound? And I'm like, no, I've never went overseas. And she says, well, you got a piece of metal in your leg, and it looks like wire. And I said, well, I'd like to see it, please. Can you pop it up on a view box? I'm not a doctor, but I can see wire on an X-ray, I think. So she popped it up on the view box, and I didn't see it at first. But you don't need to be an MD to see this. She pointed it, and it was right there. And seeing that thing there, I realized that it was, in a spot in my leg that, as I mentioned earlier, that would go completely numb about the 2-mile mark in my run. And that was kind of validation. I started running in 1979, so that thing had been in my leg since at least 1979. And they called a radiologist down. because she said, I've never seen anything like this. And radiologist comes in the office, into the x-ray room. You know, it's dark. He comes in and he's kind of overly confident. You know, he strolls over, looks at the x-ray and says, well, you've been in an accident. He says, you know, you can't get a piece of a foreign body this size into your tissue and your fascia without there being a scar. You know, you breach the integrity of the skin and it's going to leave a scar. And I said, well, you know, Doc, I don't have any scars. And he said, oh, yes, you do. You know, it may have happened early in your childhood, but there has to be. So he examined my leg. And he was wigged out. He was. And I asked him, I said, Doctor, how often is it that you find a foreign body like this under the skin and there not be a corresponding scar? And he said, never. He said, I've been a radiologist for 23 years. I don't know how this thing got into your body. So that, you know, that really drove home the fact to me that whatever this thing was, I picked it up in 1977 at Devil's Den, probably. And then when I started, you know, running, you know, that it made itself known. And the doctor said, you know, there's one other x-ray you should see. And he took down the one where you can see the thing that looks like an electronic device. That's of my knee from a straight on angle. And he took another picture of my knee bent, you know, lying flat on a slide. And so from the side view, he pops the x-ray up and he says, you know, you've got this odd array of items here in your calf muscle. And he said, I look at them and I can see that they're about the same density as bone tissue, but I think not. I'm like, why? What do you mean you think not? And they do look weird. They do look really out of place. And he said, you know, well, first of all, I've never seen bone sprout in the middle of muscle tissue, much less, you know, arrange itself into symmetrical pattern. He said, I don't know what you got here, but I don't know how these things got into your body. I don't know what they are. And I was just stunned. I was just absolutely stunned. And I wrestled with that, and you know, that triggered the return of the nightmares. And I got copies of my x-rays, which took me 90 days, and I had to threaten to take the VA to federal court to get them. But I finally got copies of my x-rays in digital form.
Were they edited?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. There is the Veterans Administration has a thing called My Healthy Vet. And and I explain this in my book, Incident at Devil's Den, that there was a radiologist report posted for my leg that mentioned anomalies above and below the knee, with a diagnosis of rule out Baker cyst, something, abnormal knee. And it alluded to the first radiologist report, which was posted about a week after the x-rays, said that it identified these anomalies above and below my knee. And unfortunately, my printer was broken. I didn't print it. You know, I should have. And a week later, that one goes down. That radiology report disappears, and another radiology report from a different radiologist takes its place. This one makes no mention of the objects above or below my knee. It just says, rule out Baker cyst, AP, lateral, blah, 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 but makes no mention at all of the things above and below my knee. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And I got my medical records, but I couldn't find that original radiologist report. Now, you know, I did a little bit of looking at CMS rules that govern, you know, hospital conduct and how you're supposed to do things. And, you know, if you write a second radiology report and there was a first, you have to reference the first one. You have to say it's an amended, or a second radiology report or a second opinion. And it doesn't say that. There's no reference to there being another report. And I just find that very suspect.
Did your implant move around, or was it completely stationary?
I think it was completely stationary because it stayed in the same spot. I mean, I'm assuming that's what made my knee go numb. So that never moved around. The things below my knee, by the way, the things below my knee, there was a guy at the conference in San Francisco, 2 weeks ago or so, that could scan for implants.
Yes.
And he scanned my leg, and my leg, the calf muscle of my leg is highly magnetic.
That's strange.
And that's what he said. He says they can, he said, quote, they can magnetize anything. I had an experience right after this when I decided I was going to write Incident at Devil's Den, and I decided I was going to go speak publicly. I ran into the Kling brothers from San Antonio, Texas, who used to have a show called Ghost Lab.
Yes.
And they heard my talk, and they wanted to film me. So I drove to San Antonio and went, and they got a little studio, and I told my story for them. And I had a microphone on my lapel, and my microphone fell off and fell on my knee. And I was going to pick it up, and the sound guy presses his earphones against his ears and tells everybody, shh, be quiet. And it was laying right on my knee. And he says, I can hear mariachi music. And he starts laughing, and he says, I'm getting a radio station, AM radio station from Mexico.
Out of your knee.
And it's coming from your knee.
You got to be kidding.
No, they have that on film.
What the Sam hell is that?
Yeah.
Honestly, that is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It proves that it's not only receiving information, it's transmitting information. I mean, I think it does both. I don't know what it does. I don't think it does anything to benefit me.
Terry, why did you have to go to court in order to get your x-rays? Why would the Veterans Affairs not release them to you?
Well, I knew that there was some strange stuff on there, and I was worried that they would lose them, misfile them, something would happen to them. So the 2 days after my emergency room visit, I went down and I went to the records department and, filed the paperwork and said, I want to get copies of my x-rays. And long and the short of it is there was always a delay, this and that. And when we hit 90 days, I decided, there's enough of this. And I went down and I said, I need my x-rays and I need them in 72 hours or I'm going to file an action in federal court. And that got me my x-rays. Now, I don't know. They may have been overly burdened. They may have been, had stacks of requests for medical records, a foot deep and just working their way through them. But I don't know. I don't know. The VA is an entity of the federal government. And, I don't know what their official position is on this topic. I don't think anybody does. So I don't know.
Do you think that copies of your x-rays got sent elsewhere?
I have reason to suspect that. I only received 4 or 5 x-rays. I found out through the help of a doctor whose name I won't mention, was very kind to me, and actually found out the VA had 24 views of my knee.
Hmm.
And by obtaining those, he was able to triangulate the two different images from two different angles and triangulate where the thing was underneath my skin and verify that it was indeed, about 2.5 inches under my skin.
So 24 images, you only got 8 of them. What do you think happened, or did you investigate what happened to those other 16?
I did. They were, quote, discarded.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think they went somewhere.
And unfortunately, you have to take their word at it. Like, you have no choice.
I don't know what else to do. But, I know this, that when they put my x-rays up on the view box, the PA, who was a physician's assistant who was taking care of me, I guess was concerned that I was so long in the x-ray room. She comes in, she looks at the x-rays, and she's like, "Oh, cool." And then these medical people start filtering in, and pretty soon there's about a dozen people in there looking at my x-rays, kind of oohing and ahhing over them,
So this was, do you think you caught the doctors off guard with what was in your knee?
Oh, no question. I caught the radiologist off guard. Yeah. 23 years of looking at x-rays, and he said he's never seen anything like that before.
Did you ask him?
Was he telling me?
Did you ask him to guess what it was, Terry?
Well, we did. We had that conversation about when he thought that the things below my knee were bone. And his words for the thing above my knee was, "This looks like a man-made, manufactured product. It's a product." He said it looks like an electrical device of some kind with two wires plainly attached to it. He said, "I don't know what it is, but and I don't know how it got it." Oh, he said. I asked him, I said, "Well, if I don't have a scar, how did this thing get into my leg?" And he said, "By some means not known to medical science." And I think that kind of sums it up as far as he was concerned.
What was going through your mind when this is happening? The radiologist is calling in people to come take a look at this. You have no idea what is up. You just know that you have a numb knee. Yet here you are trying to figure out what all the commotion is. Yeah,
well, you know what? I had a pretty good idea that this related back to the abduction. I was in the Air Force from 73 to 79. And the abduction took place in 1977. And I don't have a clear linear memory of what happened to me during my abduction. But I do have bits and pieces. And a lot of it reaffirmed in nightmares and flashbacks. I didn't know what a flashback was. I called them intrusive thoughts. I'd be reading or watching TV or doing something, and suddenly an image would flash into my head. And I'm like, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" And in 1987, I saw a therapist, and she gave me a test called a Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, or an MMPI. I was familiar with the test because my undergraduate degree is in psychology.
Right.
So I took the test, and I believe in the test. I think they're valid. And she diagnosed me with PTSD, etiology unknown.
Oh, wow.
And I explained in my book that, I didn't want to tell her I saw a UFO the size of Walmart,
Right. I got to ask this. I got to ask this question from Twitter, and normally I don't take questions in the first hour, but this one's just way too funny. Alcatraz One on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio is asking, Terry, currently is your knee Wi-Fi capable?
That's a good question. That's a great question. I hope so.
Man, you don't have to pay for Wi-Fi anywhere now. You just tap into the knee. You need a USB plug plugged into there.
Oh, it's so crazy.
Well, yeah, we've only got about 4.5 minutes left before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Terry Lovelace is our guest tonight. Incident at Devil's Den is his book that you want to check out, and go to his website, terrylovelace.com, to pick it on up. Terry, with everything that's going on, how are you emotionally through this? You know, as you're getting this implant looked at, there's a lot of hustle and bustle around this, and you're putting the pieces together where you think you know where it's from, but that had to be mentally stressful for you.
You know, it was. It was kind of a crisis type thing. You know, I knew that I didn't want to go on with waking up screaming in the middle of the night, you know, once or twice a month. I mean, for 40 years, you know, I'd have these nightmares a couple times a year. So they were an inconvenience, but they weren't, you know, they weren't that bad. But after seeing this x-ray, I just could not get this thing out of my mind. And I wanted to get this thing removed from my knee. And I talked to surgeons, and the surgeons were like, look at the x-ray, and they're like, oh, cool, yeah, I'll look at that. I'll take that out for you. But because I had a heart attack in 2005, I had a stent put in my heart in 2011. So because of my cardiac history, I needed a cardiac clearance letter for them to operate on me, and I couldn't get one. And the cardiologist says, look, you know, these things are benign. They're not causing you any harm. It's a risk versus benefit analysis. Right. And he said, you know, hey, 100,000 guys walking around out there with shrapnel in their body, and we don't take that out. You know, we let it lie. And that's what this is like. So I could not get it taken out.
That's rough. That's rough. Now, when you look at everything that you've gone through, especially over the last couple of years with about 2 minutes to go here, do you feel reconciled a little bit? Do you feel that the mystery is still continuing? What's going on with you?
You know, I writing the book brought me a lot of peace. It did. And I really expected that I'd put it on Amazon and sell maybe 50 copies and feel better mentally. And it didn't work out that way. I, you know, sold 10,000 copies, and you know, people just are interested in it. You know, I put an email in the back of my book, and I said, if you've had an experience and you want to talk to me, email me, and I'll email you back. And every morning I get up and I make a pot of coffee, and I return those emails. I've gotten over 1,200, almost 1,300 emails from people since I put the book on the market. It'll be 2 years next month. So, you know, it resonates with a lot of people. I think there's, you know, probably a lot of people out there that have had the same experiences, childhood experiences, and, you know, experiences throughout life. And it resonates with people.
Well, and that's what we have to try and do. We have to try and resonate as a community, because there's a lot of people out there, Terry, as you now know, with all those hundreds of emails, that people are lonely. They want to know what's going on. They want to know that they're not alone in what they have gone through.
Oh my God. These you know, I got a core of the 1,200, I got a core of about 800 emails that are just incredible stories. And, you know, it's funny, they all start off with, now, please don't think I'm crazy, or, you know, yes, you know, they always start off with that disclaimer. And then they go in and tell me these absolute marvelous stories that are just, I believe them. I absolutely believe them.
Well, Terry, without naming names, as we are about to go to commercial here, I'd love to hear a couple of those stories if you have them available, or just, off the top of your head, the ones that stuck out, that would be absolutely great. Terry, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we're going to go to commercial here on Spaced Out Radio. Terry Lovelace is our guest tonight. Bestseller, Incident at Devil's Den, a book you definitely want to pick up. We're going to learn about Devil's Den as well. We'll take your questions here in hour number 2, coming up on the Mighty SOR. All right, Terry and our YouTube crowd, I am just going to step away for a couple of minutes here, as normally what happens, and I'll let the YouTube crowd in on this as well. My dogs have timed out, because I have a beautiful studio in my house. My dogs have timed out my afternoon break or my top of the hour breaks over the years. And I have 2 doors. I have my studio door and then the basement door. I can hear them scratching at the other door. So I'm going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back here. And don't forget, Terry, we are live on YouTube, so they will be able to hear you if you want to say hello to them. I'll be right back.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been
Sounds
delivering
good.
amazing results.
I mean,
I hope you had a good time speaking with our audience there. I'm sure they did as well.
I did. I was going to go into a story that I received from a reader. I told them about the Vanishing Christmas Store.
Oh wow!
But this story, this is my favorite story of all that I've received, and they're all special in some way. I got a letter from a 69-year-old. She was a surgical nurse. I can go into facts, but of course, I won't betray her identity. From a southern state, and she told me that when she was a little girl, she and her sister, she was 11 and her little sister was 9. And I'll refer to the little sister as Molly. That's not her name, but I'll call her Molly. And this woman, this child, 11 at the time, they're visiting their grandfather's house. And they can play in the front yard all they want. It's a farm, right?
Yes.
And there's a farmhouse, and there's this berm about 12 feet high with a road on top. They can play anywhere they want in the front yard, but they can't go to the backyard because there's a pond back there, and they're afraid the girls are going to drown. It's dangerous back there. Plus, they got a barn, they got animals, they got farm equipment. So, but they knew the rules, and they were good. They were chasing butterflies in the front yard. She said, just having a great time. And then they heard calliope music. And Molly says, "Hey, can you hear that?" And she said, "Yeah, I could hear it." She said, "It sounded like what you'd hear from a circus." And the girls were like, "A circus? Oh boy!" But where the sound's coming from, of course. It's coming from the other side of the berm. So Molly would have made a good lawyer. Molly said, well, we can't go across the berm, but we could stand on top of it and see if we can see a circus.
Oh, wow. All right. I got to get you to cut it off there because we're going live in 15 seconds here. So bear with us, and we will...
Use promo code SOR 2019 at Mighty Movie.
Hey, thank you to everybody so far who's donated in the super chat. Really do appreciate your support on Spaced Out Radio here, our first live broadcast on YouTube. So thank you so much for that. We're going to kick things off here with hour 2 right now.
And on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to say hello to our terrestrial affiliates, our brand new one, KZAX 94.9 FM in Bellingham, Washington, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. Hi, Chuck. How you doing? Your goatee looks fantastic. WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. Don't forget to compliment Ryan on his beautiful hair. And UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Joe Montaldo has a great mane as well. On the digital side, we're proud to broadcast on Kingdom of Nye Radio, Revolution Radio, and now live on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Don't forget, you can also find all of our archives there for free. The only thing we ask in return is hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Takisco-scope. Takisco-scope is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and much, much more. Tonight we are talking with best-selling author Terry Lovelace. He's got a great book out called Incident at Devil's Den. We're going to learn about this incident coming on up here. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. And right before the break, you had received hundreds of emails regarding people having their own experiences and their own topics of conversation when it comes to UFOs and ET contact. And there was many emotional people sending you letters because they felt they needed to reach out to you. Are there one or two that really stood out for you?
Yeah, let me run through the one that I was telling your YouTube audience. I can bring everyone up to speed real quick. Two little girls, 9 and 11 respectively. They're playing at Grandpa's farm, and they're playing in the front yard. There's a 12-foot berm that divides the front yard from the backyard, because the backyard has a pond, and they don't want the girls to go back there. These girls heard calliope music, like you hear from a circus or something.
Right.
And it's coming, where it's coming from, of course. It's coming from the other side of the berm where they're not supposed to go. And Molly had the idea. She says, well, we can't go across the berm, but nobody said we couldn't stand on top and look. So they scampered up to the top of this berm, and she claims that they saw a carousel, with horses. Only it was 3 times bigger than any carousel she'd ever seen in her life. It was spinning really fast, and it was 3 feet off the ground because she could see the shadow underneath. And she said it had just 1 million lights all over it, and they could hear the music really loud. And she said she and her sister laid back and just were mesmerized by this thing. And then they're out. Well, then 4 hours pass, and the girls can't be found. So police are called, neighbors are called. A guy in a boat with poles is dragging the pond. They think maybe the girls have drowned.
Oh, my goodness.
They can't find them. They're nowhere to be found. So 4 hours later, it was actually the guy in the boat with the pole who saw them first. And he said he looked there, they weren't there, and then the next second they were there. And they were laying on the side of this berm, this mound of dirt, holding hands, and they were asleep. And he yelled, hey, I found them, and everybody comes running, and they go over to the girls and what happened? Where have you been? What? And the girls had no memory. So I don't know, we thought it was lunchtime. And, but she said they changed. She said they went there as 2 little girls and came back 2 different people. She said that she had struggled with math all of her life. And after this event, which happened over summer vacation, she just was a math wizard and said, I loved it. I loved math. And she said, I don't understand how that could happen. Now, her sister, who I refer to as Molly, the younger one, started to have behavioral problems and ended up with, not having a great life. But the 2 of them never spoke about the incident, not once. And neither one of them had ever even tried, even to ask the other one. And her little sister Molly died of breast cancer in 1989, and she was at her bedside, and she asked Molly, do you want to talk about what happened at Grandpa's? And Molly said, no, absolutely not, and turned her head away, passed away the next day. But I got, lots of letters from people family members who experience something and won't talk about it. It's like a family secret or something. And I think I think their brains are hardwired not to talk about it because it doesn't make sense.
Do you think it's fear that if we talk about it, that we will have those experiences again?
When I wrote this book, I wasn't fearful, but I felt guilty. And I recognized the emotion, and I thought, I have no reason to feel guilty. That's crazy. But I think that they can do something in our brain. I think they can control our minds. Maybe that's what the thing in my leg did. I don't know, but yeah, I had difficulty. I wrestled with it a little bit.
So when you hear stories like that it's not just adults, but it's children who are being examined, if we can use that term lightly, does that open up, or did you expect children to contact you about their experience? I realize they're older now, but back then they were still children when this incident happened.
Hundreds. Well over 100.
Really?
I've had, in my book, I explain when I was a little boy, I used to have these, this sounds laughable, I know. I used to have these 4 little circus monkeys appear in my room. And the one closest to my head would reach out a paw and say, "Take my paw, Terry, and come with us. We'll bring you back. We'll have fun." And that's one of the nightmares I've had all my life, or at least after that, was in the nightmare, the monkeys are there and it holds out a paw, but it's not a paw. It's these 4 long, ugly fingers. And it just wigs me out. But I've had people write to me and tell me that they had owls in their room, deer, Disney characters, orbs of light, raccoons. What was that? Alf, the puppet Alf.
Yes.
From years and years ago. It validates that what these things can do is they can take on a form, an appearance, and appear to us in any way that they think will be palatable to a child. They can appear in a way that the child won't be so fearful.
Yeah, I think it comes to a whole new level when it involves children. And I think for a lot of us, your story about seeing monkeys in your room isn't that crazy at all. I remember when I was a child, we lived by a forest. There was a beautiful park in there, and there was a miniature forest of trees and a little hillside there, and there was always talk of the Green Man in there. And I just, it scared us because we were told don't go into the trees because weird things happen there at night. And, as a kid, I was only there for my first 7 years of life. But as a kid, I remember having dreams of this black creature that would be trying to get me and to take me. But as a kid, because I had a little bit of a vivid imagination and I always wanted to fly, I would just kind of flap my arms like a bird, like a kid always tries to do, and I would be able to take off and get away from this creature. Wow. So I don't know, maybe that's just a childhood nightmare, but after going through what I've experienced and now hearing your story about that, it now makes me wonder whether or not there was something a little bit more to that. I got a question from YouTube, our YouTube chat room, coming in from the American one. Thank you so much for listening to us on our opening night broadcast on YouTube Live. Was sleep paralysis involved in any of these experiences of yours or people that you heard from?
I had people mention in their emails to me, this wasn't a dream, this wasn't sleep paralysis. So I had some disclaimers. I never had anybody write to me and said that they suffered from sleep paralysis. As far as if I suffered from sleep paralysis, I don't know. Maybe as a child I did. I certainly didn't suffer from sleep paralysis in 1977 because they took us out of a tent and, we were inside a craft and we were gone 4 hours. 4.5, something like that. My watches, we had mechanical watches. This was 1977. Both of our watches had stopped right at 2:40, with give or take a minute. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever experienced sleep paralysis. Just night terrors, just nightmares.
Right. Couple more questions from our audience. We'll go to Joe, who is asking if you ever heard knocking or seen knocking at your window.
No, I haven't, but I've had a lot of people tell me that they had knocking and shadows, and a couple of people said they heard scratching in the wall. So I never experienced that. These monkeys that would appear in my room would be just from a twirl of shadows, and they would suddenly just manifest and ask me to go with them. It's like they were asking my permission, which I thought was odd. And I would think, did I go with them last time? And maybe I did. And this became a family issue because I was screaming with these monkeys, get out of my room. I'm screaming, Mom, Mom, and wake up my sisters and wake up the whole household. So this became a problem. And my parents took me to the doctor, and said, he's having all these nightmares. And the doctor says, well, what's he watching on television? Oh, Space Ghost, and they rattle off. And the doctor says, well, you got to change that. That's just, you got to change his television viewing. So
of course,
I no longer could watch Space Ghost, but I could watch all the Three Stooges I want.
Exactly.
Larry and Curly, got on everyone's last nerve after about 6 weeks, and I switched to Perry Mason and started watching that. I liked it.
All right, more questions coming in from YouTube. Roy Boy is asking, Terry, have you ever thought it was a government agency pretending to be aliens?
I have thought that. I have a theory about that, and that is that, I think they're aliens. I think aliens are real, whether they come from a distant star or they're interdimensional beings, but they come from somewhere else, but I think they're real, and I think they're either working shoulder to shoulder with our government in some kind of shared agenda, or we're in an agreement or a contract with them, a quid pro quo thing, where like they give us technology and we give them license to maybe take cattle now and then, or take human beings from state and federal parks, like David Paulides talks about in the Missing 411 series.
Yes.
And the third possibility is that we don't have a clue, and they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. So I don't know. I think it's one of those three. But yeah, they could be working in concert. Yeah, working together.
A. Bauman in YouTube land is asking if sleepwalking is also a factor in this. Have you noticed that?
I've never sleepwalked in my life. No.
Interesting.
Although I retrieved some drawings that I had in a storage locker up in Michigan. What I did was when I was going through this in 1978, I kept a journal and I recorded everything that happened to me. And that was invaluable in writing this book. I made sketches, I wrote, detailed notes, and I also got in the habit of journaling my nightmares because I recognized they were, scenes from being inside that craft, and they were the same. It was the same nightmares that would recur. And, once the nightmare would start, I couldn't pull myself out of it. It had to go to a conclusion, and then I'd wake up and scream and turn the light on and, go a little bit crazy.
All right, we're going to move on here because we only got about 5.5 minutes before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Shar is asking, in regression, did you see anything military?
No, I did not. In regression, I had a hard time relaxing and getting into a hypnotic state. And I know this psychiatrist. I actually met him at a MUFON meeting. He was a staunch denier debunker. He said that he was trained medically, that people come in to tell him that they've had an experience with extraterrestrials, that, they're delusional. And he said that, in the past 10 years, he's talked to too many people with too many credible stories for this to be anything but truth. And then he started regressing people,
right,
and getting stories like mine. Yeah. But there was no military in my abduction. It was just me going up through the roof and into this giant saucer that was over my house. And that's all.
I want to ask you, Terry, before I get to Joe's question, and we only got about 4 minutes until we go to the bottom of the hour break. Did you notice, or have you been able to sense astral travel?
I've had maybe 4 dreams in my life. And, I think about it. I have people say, boy, I had this really weird dream when I was 5. Or you remember this dream. What else do you remember from 5? I mean, all the birthdays, the Christmases, all the big events, and you remember this dream? I think that's pretty significant. And I lost my train of thought.
Just in regards to astral travel.
Yes, I've had 4 instances where I had dreams where I was flying, and brilliant, vivid colors, and if I feel the air in my face, be above the ground, and I don't know what they were. I wish I could have one every night, but I've only had a couple in my lifetime. And I think those were out-of-body experiences. I really do. Or one heck of a lucid dream.
All right. Joe's question is, do you remember the aliens or monkeys instructing you not to say anything to anybody about your experiences?
No, never. No, I don't recall ever being told by beings not to talk about it. The Air Force had a different story. They didn't want me talking about it. But no, the aliens never did that. And you know what? I don't think they have to. I think if they don't want me to talk about it, they can wire my brain that way.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I think they've done that to all of us. All of us. With about 2 minutes here to go before we go to break at the bottom of the hour, Terry Lovelace is our guest tonight. I want to start switching gears because this next segment of the show, I want to really get into the incident at Devil's Den back in 1977. And right off the bat, at the top of the show, I asked you, previous to 1977, what did you really believe in UFOs? Without going, we'll hit you up with a question of what happened right after that. But previous to this incident, what type of person were you? I know you were in the Air Force. What did you do there? Who were you?
I was a pretty straight kid. I mean, I had good grades and decent grades in high school and grade school. I wasn't a problem child. I never got arrested. Met my wife when we were seniors in high school, and I've been together ever since. I went in the Air Force and was trained as a medic and an EMT. And that was the job that I was doing at the time that we got abducted. I was working in an emergency room as an EMT on the night shift from 11 till 7 in the morning with my friend in the book who I refer to as Toby or Tobias. And he was with me when we were abducted. And I'll go into that after the break, I guess.
Absolutely, because we definitely got to hear that story, and I got to figure out, I'm writing it down right now. Does Toby talk about this? Don't answer that just yet. Don't answer that just yet. But we got to find out. We're going to find out what happened in 1997 at the incident at Devil's Den, which is the book that you could purchase from Terry. It's on his website, which is terrylovelace.com. He is a best-selling author. Over 10,000 sales on this book on Amazon. So make sure you check it on out. This is one of those good ones where It's a true tale. No Hollywood involved. More with Terry Lovelace right here on Spaced Out Radio. And we are clear. Hi, everyone on YouTube. Me and Terry hanging on out. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Dave.
We're almost at 60 people watching us live.
That's great.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. I didn't expect that many. It's kind of cool. I hope they just don't look at this as, oh, this is something new. Watch for like 1 or 2, and then, in like a week from now, my numbers are down to like 12.
Not going to happen.
I don't think so. I trust the YouTube people. You YouTubers are good-looking, handsome people. Handsome people. Unlike this face for radio that I'm making you stare at. Terry, this is amazing stories, my friend. Amazing stories.
Oh, best is yet to come.
Well, we're going to get into that. I'm going to step away for like 2 seconds. Since I do have a cold, I must blow my nose, so I'll be back in like 2 seconds. I know that's kind of gross to say, but we're going to say that. There we go. I am back. It was nice and quick. Easy.
All right.
Nice and easy. Right there. All right. I'm having a lot of fun with you tonight, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I enjoy the opportunity to tell my story.
Oh, I love it. I love it. These firsthand encounters are just incredible to me. Because it's funny when you get in, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, when you get into a room or you get to talk to people who are fellow experiencers, it's amazing how when you hear someone speak, like we're hearing you tonight, how it triggers so many different memories, like that one of the childhood, that I had there. I mean, it's just pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know about you. I'm sure you had the same experience, talking to Travis Walton or
yes.
Chris Bledsoe or, Calvin Parker, connect with people,
Yeah.
and that's probably why you and I connect so well. I mean, we got some common ground there, in the same club.
Yeah. Want to say hi and wave to Leah Blue, who says, "Hey, Dave, howdy from Oklahoma. Great to have you here, Leah. Great to have you. Thank you." Yeah, you know what? You're right. And, it's funny. I here's a question that I have. I'm not going to ask it on the Spreaker show or on the radio side, but I'll ask it on the YouTube side. Do you have people now since you've come out with this, do you have people now who maybe have never had an experience in their life, and all of a sudden after they've hung out with you for a while and kind of get to know you and your stories and everything, now all of a sudden they're having experiences?
I've had a lot of people read my book and tell me that it triggered memories for them. That's a very, very common theme. And I did have one guy, you should maybe have him on your show. He's a really amazing guy. He's like me. He's an academic. He is a history professor at Citrus College, and he's been a psychic all his life.
Oh, wow.
And in academia, like in the law, you just don't share that with people.
No, I mean, obviously not.
You can forget tenure, so.
Yeah. What's his name?
His name is Dr. Bruce Solheim. He just wrote a new book.
How do you spell the last name?
Solheim.
All right. I just want to make sure I got that right. All right.
His new book, Timeless Trinity. But he's an amazing guy. And I bring him up just because, he was 65 years old when he came out and told his story and got his reaction from the academic community, which was a little bit unexpected. They let him teach a paranormal class now.
Oh, wow. That's
How cool is that?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, let's give a shout out to Astro King, who's listening in over in Europe right now, and in England. Thank you so much for tuning on in. Really appreciate that. And of course, to our southern neighbor from me, Mr. Philip, who's in eastern Washington State. I've driven through there. Beautiful country where you are, my friend. Beautiful country. You ever been to eastern Washington?
I've never been.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
I've never been.
One of the most beautiful highways, Terry, if you ever get the opportunity to do so. One of the most beautiful highways is Highway I-20 in Washington State. It's more around the central part of the state, and it is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I'd love to see that. I've always wanted to see Mount Shasta, too.
Now, seeing that, I've seen it both. I've seen it from the ground and the air. Both are impressive.
Yeah.
Hey, Corey, just so you know, the name is Dr. Bruce Solheim, Timeless Trinity. Corey is my booking coordinator. He helps me get all my guests. Oh, wow, we're at 61 people now. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Don't forget, a good way to support Spaced Out Radio is to go to our website, spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, because you would look good in one of our t-shirts. You would look good in one of our hoodies. We got a bunch of logos on there. Some would say a plethora of logos. And that's a great way to support what we do. Or do us a favor. If you can't do that, because there's some people who just can't afford it, and I'm very okay with that, the share button means just as much to us. So make sure you do that as well. Thank you so much. Terry, we're just about to come back here. Hold on. SpaceDoutRadio.com. Excuse me. All right. Music's on. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time with us. Want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, or you want to watch us live now, you can follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button, and please, thumbs up for it. Thumbs up on the videos. I'd appreciate that. And of course, our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you that you can check on out while you're listening to the show. Terry Lovelace is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He has an incredible book that can be found on Amazon or his website, terrylovelace.com. It's called Incident at Devil's Den. We're going back to 1977 here now. And Terry, I would love for you to take us back to this infamous date.
I will. I was working a night shift with my my good friend and my coworker. We'd been, working together for a couple of years. We were EMTs, drove an ambulance. Anybody on the base had a heart attack or a plane had a problem and people got hurt. We went out and, picked them up and transported them back to the hospital. And one night, it's 2 a.m., we're playing hearts, there's nothing going on. And my friend says, I refer to him as Toby out of deference to his family. He says, hey, man, I got an idea. Let's go camping. And I'm like, camping, Toby? Are you nuts, man? Neither one of us, we were both city kids. I mean, he grew up in Flint, Michigan. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I'd never been camping in my life, and he hadn't either. And I'm like, all right, man, what's up with this? Where did you come up with this idea? And he's like, no, think about it, because he knew I was an amateur photographer. I had a little dark room set up in my house, and I had a nice new Yashica camera with a nice set of lenses. And but Toby and I, we both lived on the base at Whiteman Air Force Base. And in 1977, it was a SAC base, Strategic Air Command base, with a squadron of B-52s armed with nukes, and then a squadron of Minutemen II ICBM missiles spread out all over the countryside. And when you live, we lived in NCO housing, and when you live on a nuclear base, there's not a lot you can do with your camera. There's just not a lot of opportunities to take pictures. So I wanted to photograph some wildlife. He knew that, and he says, "Look," and he was an amateur astronomer. And long story short, he made a good case for going to Devil's Den. He says, like, man, this is the spot. This is the place to go. And we went. We planned this trip, and, we bought a cheap tent, air mattresses, swiped some blankets from the hospital, and drove 6.5 hours south from Whiteman Air Force Base to Devil's Den State Park, which is in the northwest corner of Arkansas. And on the way down, I'm like, well, I guess we got to get a camping permit. And my buddy's like, no, man, we don't want to stay in a campsite. He said, if you stay in the campground, you're going to have people on either side of you. You might as well be camping at Walmart's parking lot or something. Plus there's children and other undesirables running around. He says, let's go find a place of our own. Let's be real outdoorsmen here. Let's go find a place of our own. Something high, up on a hill where he could look at the sky with no light pollution. And I could get some pictures of wildlife during the daytime. So we dodged the ranger station and the welcome center and drove the paved road till it was a gravel road, till it was a dirt road. And then we came to a chain across the road that pretty sternly said, no admittance, keep out, no hunting, no camping, no hiking, no fishing, no admittance. It was pretty clear you weren't welcome. And I saw the chain across the road, and I said, I guess we got to go find someplace else, because we could see a nice plateau out in the distance. And my friend says, no, man, wait a minute. And he hops out of the car. And what they'd done is they'd taken this chain and just looped it on itself with a padlock and then draped it over this post on the opposite side of the road. And he just lifted it up and dropped it to the ground, and it fell to the ground. And we were like, woohoo, we felt like Lewis and Clark. We drove in, and in retrospect, it kind of this sounds funny, but it kind of seemed like Toby knew where to go. And he did have an unerring sense of direction. I mean, this guy knew north from south. I mean, he wouldn't get lost. But it was weird because he guided me right up this road, and we crested this hill, and there was a big open meadow, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I think I may have sent you some photos of it. It's still there. It's still there. And we pulled up and set up our camp right next to the tree line. And I'm going to cut through some facts here and get to the evening. And, we did all the fun stuff you do when you camp, and cook hot dogs and, all that stuff. And we're sitting back on these air mattresses, and it's fully dark out now. It's a beautiful night. The sky is just full of a trillion stars, and he's pointing out different constellations, and we're just having a nice time. And I remember saying, hey, man, I see the allure in this. I see why people do this. This is really pretty cool. And he said, yeah, I told you, And we're talking, and there's a lull in our conversation, and it kind of goes quiet. And I realized that just 15 minutes earlier, there was so much noise from the crickets and the tree frogs. And I know this sounds cliche, like out of a movie, but I swear to God, it's absolutely true. It went from being loud out there to dead silent. And not only did it turn dead silent, it was still. I mean, we had a nice little breeze going on, and we lost that. And the only thing I could hear was the campfire crackle now and then. But it was still. And, it unnerved me. Had I been there by myself, I'd have been in my car and got out of there. I really would have.
There's not, you know what? There's nothing more eerie than standing in the forest and all of a sudden everything goes silent. Doesn't matter if it's day or night. It is freaky. We've had that happen around here. Continue, please.
Yeah. Yes. You know, and I asked my friend, I say, you know, hey, Tobe, is this normal, man? You know, like he'd know, you know? And he says, yeah, you know, we've been laughing and cutting up, making a lot of noise. The crickets, the tree frogs, they'll all be back. Just, you know, give them some time. They'll come back. And, but I wasn't so sure. And it was probably about 15 minutes later, he turns his head to the left and he asked me, he says, hey, Terry, were those lights there before? And I have to strain to look over his left shoulder. And on the horizon, there was this perfect little triangle of 3 stars. And they were too far off the horizon to have been like from a parking lot, or besides, we were really out there. We were in some remote area. It couldn't have been a train. It was static. It was just sitting there. And but again, we didn't know what it was. And each star was about as bright as the North Star, so it was pretty bright. And while we're talking about it, and it's pointed up, you know, it's got the base of the triangle parallel with the horizon and then the point up toward the sky. And while we're talking about this thing, it moves. And what it does is it rotated real slow, like it was turning on an axis, and did about a 3/4 turn and stopped. And then it started to climb up into the air. And it started moving straight up. And we could see there were so many stars out that the sky really had a blue tint to it. And the area inside these 3 stars was jet black. And that's the first time I noticed. I had gone from feeling uneasy about the silence and the stillness in the forest. And then I felt this like wave of calm wash over me. And it really was almost like sedation. And all that anxiety and nervousness I had about the forest, it's all gone. And we're just watching this thing. And I'm in a really strange place. I mean, I'm in a really strange frame of mind. I mean, I'm not scared. But I don't feel like a participant. I feel more like I'm an observer. I don't know how to explain it, other than we're just watching this thing and relaxed. And we watched this thing climb into the sky. It climbed up, straight up, and gained some altitude, and then started to descend. And it did. We could see it was plainly coming in our direction and getting bigger as it did. And the 3 points of light, you know, expanded, you know, always equidistant to one another. It just, obviously it was one object, not 3 separate objects choreographed. And this thing tumbled, where it would do, like the apex of the triangle would twist over and bend, and you'd see 2 lights, then 3 lights for a second, then a full triangle, and you kind of get the idea. And I don't know where I got the idea from, but I got the idea that this thing wasn't just tumbling out of control. It was moving with purpose. And it was moving with purpose, and it was coming to us. And, you know, there's hardly a word spoken between us. I mean, I think my buddy said something to the effect of, it's really moving now. I mean, something, you know, like that. I don't recall saying anything. And we watched this triangular shadow from the starlight move across the forest below us, because we were up on this plateau in this meadow. And this thing was absolutely enormous, Dave. It was like a Walmart. I mean, it was like a city block long on each leg of the triangle, and deep. You know, it wasn't, people say, oh, you saw one of those T3CBs or whatever they're called. No, not this. This thing was 5 stories tall, and it had a light bar that ran up and down the point of each triangle, and it parked. We were kind of off to the side by the tree line, and it parked right over the meadow. So we weren't underneath it. We were just right beside it, kind of. And it came to a stop, and we're just looking at it. And from underneath this thing, there came a light. And it was like this white light. Like, you ever seen a searchlight that cuts through fog? You can see a visible beam.
Yes.
That's what this was like. It was about 6 inches in diameter. And it was just like someone flipped a switch, it turned on, and landed right square in the middle of our campfire. And I'm looking at it, Toby's looking at it, we look at each other, and no discussion about it. We watch it, and it's there for maybe 60 seconds, and then it flips off. It's gone. And then immediately, there came this laser thing. Now, this is 1977. Lasers were out, but they weren't real common. I had never seen one except on television. And this laser beam came from the center of this triangle, and it would land at a spot in our campsite, stay there for 1/10 of a second, and then reappear in another place for 1/10 of a second, and then do that over and over and over again. And it danced all around the campsite. I mean, it struck me in the chest a couple times. I didn't feel anything. I know it hit my friend Toby. It hit our tent, hit our car. And I had the feeling, hey, this thing's checking us out. That was the vibe that I had, that this thing is checking us out. And that lasted 3 minutes or so. That lasted a little bit longer. And then it turned off. And I remember feeling sleepy. I just felt so sleepy. All I wanted to do was go to bed. And Toby was having the same thought. He stood up and he said, "Show's over." And he grabbed his blanket and his inflatable air mattress and threw them inside the tent on the right side. And he dove in and fell face down on this mattress. And I didn't bother to take off my boots, which would become important later. But I didn't bother to unlace my boots or take my shirt off or anything. I just threw my air mattress in and followed suit with Toby. And I wanted my head near the front of the opening of the tent, where he was the other way around. And that's the way that we were. And the last thing I remember was, "Toby, you were wrong, because the crickets and the tree frogs never did come back." And then I was out. And I was out for 4 some hours. Our watches both had stopped at 2:41. Had no memory, or at least I had no memory at all when I first woke up. I woke up, there were these crazy lights coming through the canvas of the tent, lighting the tent up. I mean, like a ballpark at night, man. It was just really like an old school flash bulb on a camera. Really very bright. And during one of these flashes, I looked down and I noticed my boots are undone. And I'm like, that's crazy. And I took one of my boots off and my socks on sideways. Well, military kind of drills it into you. You got to take care of your feet, right? I mean, I would never do that. So I'm annoyed, and I put my socks on right, and I put my boots on and laced them up. And I'm still kind of in a fog. And I'm thinking, these lights, man, that must be like a park ranger's truck, the overhead lights on a park ranger's truck, here to kick us out of the park, maybe. And in one of these flashes of light, I could see that Toby, my friend, is on his knees, and he's peeking out this tent. And in a bright flash of white light, I could see there were tear tracks down his eyes, and he'd been crying. And that scared me. And then all of that sedation, all of that, almost apathy, disinterest that I had, that was all gone. I was scared now because I could not imagine what in the world could move this guy to tears. And I'm like, "Toby, what is it, man? Is it park rangers?" And he just said, "Shh, be quiet." And I got to my knees and I looked out the flap of my tent on my side, and I could see 2 things: that this giant triangle had descended. Last night, when it stopped over our heads, it was about 3,000 feet in the air, I'm guessing. And overnight it had descended, and this thing's now about 30 feet, over this meadow. And it's enormous. And then the second thing I noticed was I saw what I took to be little kids, maybe a dozen or 15 of them, and they're just walking around this meadow, and they walk with they're all walking funny. They walk with an unusual gait, like their feet are sore or something.
Yes.
And I'm like, Toby, what the hell are these kids doing out here in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night? And he said, Terry, man, those ain't no little kids. They're not human beings, Terry. Look at them.
You got aliens.
We had aliens. We had aliens. We did.
Yeah.
And
wow.
There was we watched them for, 10, 15 minutes. And we're so scared. We're just peeking out of this tent. We're afraid to move. My friend's hyperventilating. And then there came, from underneath this thing, there was another light that came on. And this was a column of that white light, maybe 25 feet in diameter, but a perfect column. And it came down from the middle of the ship. I didn't hear any noise. And these little guys, in pairs and threes, would wander into this light and just dissolve. And they were gone. And we watched them as they, all kind of headed back, walked into the light, and just disappeared. And when the last two little guys disappeared, the light turned off, and the lights on the points of the triangle, which had been green and yellow and white, now switched to all white, and this thing took off. And it didn't take off like a rocket. It just kind of lifted off like a hot air balloon and made a slight turn and rotation and just rose up into the sky. And the higher it went, the faster it went. And we watched it, and it was three lights again, and then it was one light, and then it was gone. And we're sitting in the tent, and it's still dead quiet outside. And I know this sounds crazy, but all I had over my head was canvas. But I felt like I had cover. I did not want to be out in the open to run to the car. I was content just to sit there till daylight, to be honest with you. But my friend's like, man, we got to get out of here. And he was right. It was the right thing to do. And, to this day, I have a fear of open spaces. I mean, I would walk a half a mile out of my way to avoid having to walk across an open field. I just feel vulnerable still. So we ran to my car. I had my keys and my wallet. Toby had a flashlight. We got in the car, and I said, man, it's dark out here. Can you can get me out of here, without breaking an axle? We back to the road. He's like, yeah, I got it. I got this. And he was able to guide me out of the park. And we were hurting so bad. I had never been so thirsty in my life. Whatever they did to me, they gave him a double measure, because Toby was really in a lot of pain. And he's kind of curled up in a fetal position on the big bench seat of this old Chevy. Just kind of, there's no way he could have drove a car. Then the sun came up, and it was like, man, it was like somebody threw sand in my eyes. And I had this sunburn all over my body. And I don't know how that happened, because I wasn't out in the sun. I mean, I wore a cap. We weren't, there's just no way we should have been sunburned. But we were both burned. I had sunburn under my arms, the soles of my feet. I mean, every inch of my body was sunburned.
That's almost the same as Stefan Mikulek up here at Falcon Lake in Manitoba.
Had a similar experience? Did he? Yeah. And the thing that with my eyes, they told me that I had what the doctor called a flash burn. He said it's like what arc welders would get if they didn't wear that mask.
Right.
And it's essentially a sunburn to the cornea of your eye.
Incredible. Terry, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. And my God, what an incredible story and an experience you have had, Terry Lovelace. Website, terrylovelace.com. The book, Incident at Devil's Den, it can be found on Amazon. Terry is a best-selling author there. We're going to be right back with more of Terry's story in the final half hour with Terry, and then we get to the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio coming up next. Holy shit. Wow. Whew.
Yeah.
You had me goosebumping, man. Goosebumping, especially when you were describing the walk, because I've seen that walk. Oh.
You've seen that gate.
Oh, yes.
You know?
Yeah, I know.
There's some people, I tell them that, and they're like, I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's the walk, man. It's the walk. Terry, it's just you and the YouTube crowd. I'll be right back. I'm going to let the puppies out one more time here, okay?
Sounds good. I'll be right here. I hope everyone on YouTube is enjoying the story of my misfortune. I haven't been camping. I don't know if anyone out there is from Arkansas, where this thing happened. I'm going to be at Eureka Springs at the Ozark Mountain UFO Festival conference I'll be there speaking in April 9th through 12th. And it's in Eureka Springs. It's a really pretty venue. Anybody out there is within driving distance, make the trip. It'll be a really good conference. I also have a Facebook page, Incident at Devil's Den. Go to my page, send me a friend request, ask me some questions.
All right, Terry, I am back.
I am here.
Me too. Cool. Makes two of us. Hi, YouTube. How you doing? We got a couple minutes left before we're going to go back on the air. Want to remind all of you that a great way to support this show is, if you can, give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscription like. Hit that red subscription button if you don't mind. Also, we'd love it if you grabbed a Spaced Out Radio t-shirt. Go to our website, spacedoutradio.com. Click on the SOR Vault. We got some great selections there for you. Terry needs one of those shirts. Terry, you need one of our shirts that says, "You got aliens." You need one of those.
I do.
Definitely. After that story you just told us, you definitely need one of those. And of course, we also have, the super chat going. So if you feel that we're doing a good job and you want to help us on out, we would be gracious as well. So thank you, YouTube, for joining us. We are going to be here every night now. This system will get, as I get a little bit more comfortable with it, it will get a little bit cleaner, a little bit better. So bear with me on that. But this is night number 1 that we are broadcasting on YouTube. So thank you so much for checking us on out as well. Terry, this has been a great night, my friend. Thank you so much. Really, honestly, man, this has been fantastic.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, wow. I'm stunned and blown away. Stunned and blown away. Yeah. Beautiful.
Well, there's more to the story.
Oh, well, we're going to get into it. Well, I know it's East Coast for you, my friend, and I don't normally do this. But if you want me to skip the news and the thought of the day, and if you want to continue with us, I'm sure our audience would be pretty happy with that. I don't want to put you on the spot like that, but if you're feeling like you're awake and you want to continue telling your story, I do have a full hour left.
Sure, I'll hang out. Absolutely.
Oh, that'd be awesome, man. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Sign me up.
Oh, man. I just booked Chris Bledsoe for April 13th.
Great job.
Yeah, man. That's going to be an exciting show. That's going to be...
I talked to him in March of 2018 when I published my book. I was on Mel Farbagast's show. It was my first appearance as a guest. And he said, "You should talk to this guy, Chris Bledsoe." And he kind of introduced us. And I talked to him. He's got a phenomenal story. Were you able to listen to him at San Francisco?
Yeah, I was. That was, it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal.
He told me back in I wish I could have seen his talk, because he told me back in 2018, he said, there's a spiritual aspect to all this.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not aware of that. But, he's pretty convinced there is. And I've had other people tell me the same.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's something about it. Hold on 1 second. We're about to go live here.
Get it today at kajans.com.
All right. Here we go. Music is on.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
We're underway in the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, our brand new affiliate, KZAX 94.9 FM in Bellingham, Washington, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we're proud to broadcast on Revolution Radio and Kingdom of Nye Radio, and as of tonight, we are also live on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Also the place where we store all of our archives for free. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Takistoscope. Takistoscope is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, has a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Terry Lovelace is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. His book It's a bestseller. Incident at Devil's Den. This is an incredible story that Terry is getting into. And because of the magnitude of this story, we're going to skip the SOR News Wire and the Thought of the Dave. Terry has agreed to stick with us right through to the end of the show because this is an amazing story, and I think we're all enjoying this one. Thank you so much, Terry. Terry's website, terrylovelace.com. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, right before the break, you were talking about these burns that you and Toby, your friend, had after this incident of seeing this dozen or so little grays running around you.
Yeah, well, there's more to the story. When we drove back, something was different. And I don't know what it was, but, we were tight before we made this camping trip. And I know it sounds, it baffles me, but I didn't want anything to do with the guy. And I don't understand where that emotion came from, but it was weird. And when we got back to base, we were taken to the emergency room. My wife took me, Toby's wife took him, and I had the most thorough medical examination I'd ever had in my life. And they told my wife, they gave her a bag, a big plastic bag, and they told her to go home and bring back my boots, my clothing, any rocks or anything I might have collected on this trip, anything that I brought back with me, put into the bag and bring it to the hospital. And so she brought my clothes and my boots in, and they took them. I never saw them again. I don't know what they wanted them for, but I didn't know it at the time, but I found out later we were both listed as acutely ill with dehydration. So I got IVs in each arm. And I'm in the emergency room still, and I'm told that they'll have a room for me, shortly. And the hospital commander, who I knew real well, who was a good guy, and the base commander, who I knew of but didn't know, and two guys I didn't know in suits, came into the emergency room, into the treatment room, and the doctor stepped out. And the hospital commander said to me, and he was very formal, and he said, "Sergeant Lovelace, you're to have no contact with Sergeant Tobias. That means no telephone calls, no visits in person, no notes passed between you. You're to give him nothing. He's to give you nothing. You're not to attempt contact with any of his relatives. You're not to make an attempt to contact him via a third party." On and on. And
wait a sec. The doctor told you this?
No, the base commander told me this, or our hospital commander told me this.
Okay.
The doctor stepped out, and it was just the base commander, hospital commander, and these two guys that were in civilian clothes, and the hospital commander, the guy that I knew, who was my immediate supervisor, was the one telling me this. And, it was no contact order. You're to have no contact with Senior Airman Tobias in any way, shape, or form. If you run into him at the PX, you turn around and walk the opposite way. Just weird. And he asked me, do you understand me? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And I didn't. I really didn't understand why. But in a weird way, I was okay with it. Normally when two people go through some kind of shared traumatic experience, they come away from it closer. They kind of have a bond. But not so in this case. And I don't know why. But I did see my friend one last time. He got orders cut to Japan at light speed. So he's PCSing out to Japan. And despite this no contact order, my wife's driving home from the base exchange. We'd done some grocery shopping, and Toby, both lived in NCO housing. He only lived about 3 blocks from me. And to get home, we drove by his house, and And I asked my wife, I said, hey, would you stop? I just want to tell my friend goodbye. You know, it's a really weird emotion. It's not like I wanted to hang with him anymore, you know, but I felt like I owed him a goodbye. And, you know, she's like, you know, don't mess with these people. You know, you're under an order not to have any contact with the guy. And I'm like, I know, it'll be fine. I'll be back in 4 minutes. And she pulled over, and I hopped out of the car, and I ran up to the house. I went through the front door like I'd walked through 100 times before. And here's Toby's wife walking past me, and she's packing. And she just gives me a real hard look and says, you're not supposed to be here. And I said, I know. I just want to say goodbye to Toby. And I guess Toby heard this exchange because he came out of the bedroom and walked around the hall into the hallway, and he was just a train wreck. I mean, this is a guy that was impeccable about his appearance, and his hair was all sideways, and he had on a dirty shirt, dirty jeans, and was barefoot. I know he'd been moving, but it was just out of character for him. And you know, I wanted to embrace the guy. I thought it'd be appropriate, and I didn't. Instead, I held my hand out, and we did this awkward exchange back and forth until we finally connected and shook hands. And Toby was short. He was about 6 inches shorter than I am. And he looks up at me, and his eyes are bloodshot, and I could smell vodka on his breath. Now, this is a guy that, you know, I never knew to drink hard liquor. And, I mean, at a barbecue, he might drink a can and a half of beer. And that was it. So that was out of character for him. And I said, you know, I understand you're going to Japan. I just wanted to say goodbye. And he ignored that and just looked up at me, and he asked, it happened, didn't it, Terry? And I said, yeah, my brother, it did. It all happened. You're not losing your mind. And he said, well, why? And I'm like, Tobe, I don't have a clue, man. I don't know why. And I'm just looking down at my shoes, and I just turned and I ran out of the house. And that's the last time I saw my friend. He went to Japan, and his life fell apart at this point. His wife left him. By the way, he had told his wife that this camping trip was my idea. We'd find out years later, which is why she was so unfriendly. But she left Toby and moved back to the States and ended up marrying this long-haul trucker, a nice guy. And they stopped by to see us because my wife and her were real tight. And this is, you know, a couple of years after we've been out, you know, 1983 or so. And yeah, she stops by because I had tried to contact Toby in 1981, about 2 years after I got out, and I had his dad's phone number up in Michigan in Flint. And I called and I talked to the old man once, and he said, Toby's not doing real well. He's on the street a lot. And he knew who I was. And I said, well, this is my number. Will you please have him call me? And I never heard from him. And so they got divorced. And a few years later, I was just starting work in the law, and I had a friend a guy who became a friend, who's an FBI agent. And we were working on a case, a criminal matter. And I asked him one day, I said, hey, you know, I'd like to find this buddy of mine I was in the Air Force with. Think you could help find him? And he says, sure, I can find anybody. So as long as he's not a fugitive, I can find him. He says, give me all the info you got on him and I'll find him for you. I'm like, cool, thanks. That'd be great, man. And he says, yeah, just between us. I mean, I'm not going to, it's not a case or anything, but I'll do it as a favor. And I said, well, that's great. So about 2 weeks pass, and he says, meet me at the bar on Friday. I got news about your buddy, and I'll buy you a beer. I said, okay, fair enough. I met him, and he got real serious, and he said, I got bad news for you. Your friend is dead. And I'm like, what do you mean my friend is dead? He's 32, 33 years old, whatever, he's a young man. How was he dead? And he said it was an automobile accident near Flint. He said, I'm very sorry. And, that was kind of devastating. But, I mean, you live with it. I mean, you think things like this happen, right? So I thought, boy, what a missed opportunity that we never got the chance to sit down and talk about what happened. The Air Force sure didn't want us to get together and talk about it. I knew that. So when I'm writing my book in 2016, I decided I wanted to look up his obit.
Mm-hmm.
And I found his obit. And he died in 2007, September 4th, 2007. The FBI agent lied to me. Now, I don't know if he just got lazy. I can't imagine he would get lazy and tell me my friend was dead. I mean, that's kind of an outrageous thing to do. But the information he gave me was wrong. I mean, I verified it. I mean, it was him. He was alive till September 4th, 2007. So I think that just adds a level of how much our government did not want the two of us to talk to each other. So that's the story of Toby. And
wow. Wow. That is horrific. I think, like every one of our listeners right now, we're sitting here kind of jaw dropped on this, Terry. Just absolutely jaw dropped. And how old were you when this incident happened in 1977?
22 years old.
And he died and he died 30 years later.
Yeah. We had all that time that we could have, before I went to work for the government, I had a law practice in Lansing, Michigan. Less than an hour from Flint. So it's just tragic. It really is. Just tragic. Because, I have questions about what happened to us that night that I'm sure he could answer, and likewise. And that's something that I talk about, and it's what happened to us when we found ourselves inside the ship, because they took us out of the tent. I don't know how they got us out of the tent and into this thing, but they did somehow. And it was crazy because the inside of this thing was bigger than the outside. I don't know if they took us someplace else, or if it's some manipulation of the laws of physics, but this thing looked like a giant office building from the outside. On the inside, it looked like a football stadium. And I just had trouble reconciling that. Like I say, I don't know if they took us someplace else or what, but I was aware that I was standing and I can't move. Just like Calvin Parker, all I can move is my eyes. And my eyes are darting all over the place because I'm freaked out and I'm trying to take in as much as I can. I'm trying to get grounded and figure out where I am and what's going on. And I'm mildly confused, and I remember, oh yeah, we're camping. What am I doing here? And then I remembered the thing over the tent. And then I knew. And then I was scared. And I was standing there, I'm holding my clothes and my boots in my hand. They had undressed us both. And I was aware, I couldn't turn my head, but I was aware that Toby was next to me. And I remember hearing a woman screaming. I mean, and you know, you can jump out and grab somebody and say boo, and they'll scream. But there's a different character of scream that goes with pain. And this was a sharp, shrill, it was a pain scream. And, you know, that did nothing to make me at ease. The inside of this thing was just massive. It was like a huge atrium, and there were walkways all around, going up multiple stories. There were little gray guys, like running all over the place. I saw what looked like a golf cart without wheels. I saw on the same deck that we were on, there were 3 flying saucers parked in a line. I mean, like planes below a carrier deck, just lined up. And what looked like garage doors. And there was this guy that all the little guys. I have a theory about these little gray guys that we ran into, and I don't think I don't think they're living sentient beings like you and I. I think there's some kind of combination of artificial intelligence and maybe some biological matter and quantum computing or nanotechnology and whatever you can think of. But I don't think they're alive in the way you and I are. And there was a guy there that appeared to be, you know, he carried himself with authority like he was in charge. He was 6 foot tall, or maybe a little over. He wore a gray, tight-fitting uniform, and he didn't have a gray complexion at all. His complexion was pinkish white, but he had no ears, just 2 holes for nostrils, a slit for a mouth, no hair, and his eyes were black and big, but not grotesquely big like you see in the motion pictures. These were just like a pair of Ray-Bans that wrap around. And I'm straining my eyes to the left as far as I can to look at him. And just by happenstance, he turns his head and we locked eyes. And this is one of my most frequent nightmares. As a matter of fact, of all the things that I saw on the ship and all the things there that scared me, this was the most terrifying part of the whole thing. And that was the second that we locked eyes, this guy was in my head. I mean, he was in my head. I mean, he knew me, he knew my dreams, my secrets, my wife. He knew everything about me. It was like he downloaded my head, you know? And his eyes were just, you know, you got a dog.
Yes.
You know, your dog will come over and put his head in your lap.
Yes.
And you pat him on the head, and he looks up at you with those big eyes, and he recognizes that you're the alpha. And he knows his role, and it's subservient. And when I locked eyes with this guy, I felt like I was the dog. That's the best way to describe it.
No kidding.
And then I became aware that Toby was gone. And then I heard him scream, and I heard him scream, oh my God, no, no, and then scream. And then I'm really upset because I know my turn's coming. And then I saw these other human beings on board this thing. There were maybe 15 or 20. It was hard to say. They were lined up in neat rows, and they're all just like us, holding their clothing in their hands. And they're a mixed bag of men, women, and children. And I can see that, like us, their eyes are darting all over the place. And they're all crying. And then I also saw what looked to be human beings in uniform. And there were about 6 of them, 5 men and 1 woman. they were young. They were like us. I mean, 19, 20-year-old kids, military haircuts, combat boots, tan flight suits.
Weird.
With an orange insignia. Weird. I didn't recognize, but they sure looked human, and they would not look at us.
No.
And one of them was a girl, a petite. She looked to be Latino, maybe, with a ponytail.
Terry, hold that thought right there, because we're going to escape for a break here at the bottom of the hour. And thankfully, you're going to continue this story when we come back here on Spaced Out Radio. Terry Lovelace, an incredible story tonight. This is probably one we're all going to have to go back and listen to the archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Terry's website, terrylovelace.com, his book, Incident at Devil's Den. If this doesn't get the hairs up on your body, I don't know what will. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio. Holy shit. Holy shit. Whew. Whew.
Yeah. It's stuff of nightmares, man. It really is.
Terry,
it really is.
Did you, and I'm asking this on a personal level here, okay?
Yes.
Was there a cathedral-like area with an elevator that had no rails?
I recall a white domed room, and that's where they did the medical thing. There was a platform that wasn't an elevator. It was just you stood on it. And it went up and down.
Yes. Like silver color.
Yeah, because everything in the place was either white or stainless steel.
I've been on that elevator.
Really?
Yeah. We need to talk.
Really?
We need to talk.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I am like, I don't know if the audience can see, I am like all goosebumps when you started messaging that. The only time I have seen people was on that craft. I didn't see any of the grays. I knew that I got pinned down once. Well, this elevator took me to these seats, almost like this oval type booth, and the seats that we sat on, they were like red velvet.
Weird.
Yeah, and next thing I knew, I was out. I woke up to my me now lying flat on my stomach, and I tried to pick my head up, and something grabbed my head and pushed it right down. I could not lift it up. Then I blacked out again, and next thing I know, I force my head up. I swivel my legs into a sitting position, and I look down maybe 3 feet below me, and I see this little gray whose neck is sticking out from his body and his head is sticking out from his neck. And he starts scampering off, and I started yelling at him, reminding him that I was coming back for revenge. And that's where, and right after that, that's where I saw a little boy toddler in a diaper. The diaper was luminescent green with black and luminescent red veins running through the diaper. And that little baby, maybe a year old, just over a year old, when a child starts walking.
Yeah.
Okay. Started waddling behind him. And I knew that kid was mine.
Yeah.
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 But that elevator, I have been on that elevator, dude. I have been on that elevator. Holy,
crazy.
I'm like sweating here. I am so freaked out right now by that synchronicity.
How about the dome room? Did you see a white domed room?
No, it was like, when you walk into a church and they got the big steel doors, it's usually 4 doors with the metal rods in between. That's what it was like. Yeah. And it was lined up. Okay, there were people behind me. I remember there were about 4 to 6 people in front of me. And then it was my turn to go on the elevator. And I went on up, grabbed my seat, And the next thing I know, I was out.
Well, my story is going to sound real familiar. I mean, not identical, but real familiar.
Yeah.
And real similar.
Yeah, I'm like wowed right now. I'm like, holy, I can't say this on the air with when we're on the radio side, but I'm literally like, holy shit. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's frightening.
Yeah. I don't remember anything outside of that. I don't remember coming back. Yeah, it was an experience, man. It was a trip. That is for sure.
When they kicked us out, I found ourselves, we were laying on the ground by my car. And I remember thinking somebody screwed up because we're supposed to be in a tent. And the little gray guys were there, and they dragged us into the tent and just kind of unceremoniously threw us in the tent. And that's why my boots were unlaced, because they had stripped us when we were in the place.
Yeah, I got grabbed from my house. So that's what I know happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy. Chris Bledsoe's story is just...
Yeah.
Well, you heard his... I didn't.
Oh,
I only know what he...
You know what? You, me, and Chris Bledsoe need to go have some serious discussion time. Discussion time. Yeah. Dude, I am like vibrating right now. I am so affected by this.
Well, you have to be sure and give him my regards.
I will. All right, my friend, we got about 15 seconds, and great. Now I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Hopefully I got enough time. Look at the light. Come on, sneeze. Of course not. Try and hold it. Oh, I made it. Excuse me.
Bless you.
All right, music's on. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. By the way, you could use that same address now because we are live on YouTube. So check it on out. Thank you so much, Will. I see you on there. Thank you for what you did in the super chat. Muchly appreciated. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can check those out while you're listening to the show. If you just tuned in, you have missed an amazing, amazing night. Terry Lovelace is our guest tonight. We're talking about his book, Incident at Devil's Den. This is quite the story in regards to his ET abduction back in 1977. Terry's website is terrylovelace.com. Terry, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
I don't even know where to start, my friend. I really don't even know where to start with this, because what you said right before the break was absolutely gut-wrenching about your friend Toby, that you were told after all these years that he was dead and he didn't die until later on in life. You got screwed out of a friendship there by what sounds like the United States Air Force. And, that is horrific. How have you been able to cope with all of this?
I miss my friend. And I really regret that we never had the opportunity to get together and talk about this. But, I don't think they wanted that to happen. Two people are credible. One person is only half as credible. So, we would have bolstered each other's stories and told the truth, and, it would have been maybe hard to dispute,
Have you ever found out, Terry, if they told Toby the same thing about you, that you were dead?
I had no idea. I you know what? That thought actually has not crossed my mind.
I wonder.
I assumed, I heard from his ex-wife. We heard from his ex-wife that, that he had some problems and that was not doing well and was deteriorating. And I just assumed that was more the reason. But who knows?
That's a trip.
We had an unusual experience, and that was, this may have something to do with that. Pardon me. He says, well, we were hospitalized for a couple days for our burns and dehydration. And when they kicked us out of the hospital commander came in with this doctor and gave me this really weird talk. And he says, we found out the reason for your burns. We believe that there was some naturally occurring radium in the limestone that you guys laid on. And he says, it's clear that you didn't use sunscreen. And but nobody needs to know about this. There's no reason to talk about it. It's, it was your mistake and your fault, and it's nobody's business. And he said, some of the medication we gave you will give you funny dreams sometimes. And he says, if you have them, just ignore them and they'll go away. Well, he was half right. I did have some funny dreams, but they didn't go away. And it's just an odd conversation. They discharged us from the hospital with what I refer to in my book as a bucket of pills. They gave us this massive amount of capsules to take. And we were supposed to take one with every meal, 3 a day. And there was a nurse that would come by my house in the evening, right after dinner, about 6 o'clock in the evening, 6:30. She wore no name tag. And she was all business, never took my blood pressure, never asked how I felt. All she did was she had a little tray she dumped my pills into, counted them, made a mark on a notebook, closed it up, put the pills back in the bottle and said good evening, and left. And about 4 days after taking these pills, maybe a little more than 3, I'm losing it, I can't find my car keys, I'm watching cartoons, I'm just out of it. And my wife says, I think those pills are making you goofy. And I said, I don't know, maybe you're right. And she says, stop taking them. And I did. And what I started doing was, after every meal, I'd flush one down the toilet. I wish I'd saved just one of those pills. Man, I never thought that far, though. So my pill count was always right. She never asked to watch me swallow one. She just did the pill count.
Right.
But I know how goofy those things made me. I can imagine what they may have done to my friend's mind if he took those things for full 14 days.
I got to ask you this. You mentioned that you had talked to Toby's ex-wife, and this leads to Ted's question in YouTube. Did she ever have a conversation with you in regards to what had happened again? Or have any of his family, I don't know if they had children or not, but even his extended family, has anybody ever reached out to you regarding this?
No, but I made an attempt to reach out to them. And that was kind of a bittersweet encounter. At the time, she didn't know where Toby was, and this was before I found out that he was deceased. This was the first time I tried to contact him back in the early 80s. And then when I went to write the book, all those years later, I thought, well, I want to make sure that everybody's cool with me telling this story, and whether I should use his real name or not. And because of she didn't change her name, and the children still have the. It's a long story, but she asked me not to use her name, and I can understand that, and I respect that. We had that after I found out that he was deceased in 2016. I made the effort to contact her, and she said, "Yeah, he died 9 years ago." So that was validation. I found the right guy.
My goodness. My goodness. Do you think the Air Force knew they were there?
I do. I'll tell you how I know. They sent these 2 OSI agents in to interrogate us. OSI, for maybe somebody's listening and doesn't know, OSI stands for Office of Special Investigations. In the United States Air Force, they have what's called the Security Police, and then within the Security Police, there is the OSI. So the OSI is to the Air Force what NCIS is to the Navy, if that makes sense, so the investigative branch. And these 2 plainclothes guys in blue business suits came to see me when I was in the hospital. And this guy, I don't know if you've ever spoken to Calvin Parker.
I have not yet.
Louisiana. He's got this thick Louisiana accent. And this guy, this major, he showed me his credentials, and he was a major. And the other guy was a captain, a younger guy in his 30s. This guy had that weird Louisiana accent. And he came in, they showed me credentials, and I said, "Sir, am I in some kind of trouble?" And he said, "Son, would we be here if you weren't in trouble?"
Oh my.
And then him and the captain laugh, And I'll kind of cut to the chase here. There was kind of I'm thinking, what did we do? Did we burn the forest down? What's the big deal here? And he said, our mistake was we didn't put that chain back up, because the park rangers found that chain down and went in and found our campsite, and we left everything there, including our backpack, or Toby's backpack with his name and address on the base in it. So park rangers found that, called the base and said, "Looks like 2 of your airmen were down here camping. They got a little campsite set up and everything's here. Looks like they're planning on coming back." So this guy says, "Son, why would you set up a campsite without planning on coming back?" He said, I don't buy that. And I wasn't going to tell him I saw a UFO. I knew that wouldn't end well.
Right.
So I told him, I said, hey, look, we went to bed sick as dogs, and we woke up and we were even sicker, and we just decided to leave because we were so sick. And he said, "You and your buddy got a little marijuana plot out there? Is that what this is all about?" And I'm thinking, oh my God, because 1977, that would have meant time in Leavenworth. I mean, that would have been really bad news. And what if somebody out there had, by happenstance, had a marijuana plot, or there were marijuana plants? I mean, my mind's racing. So anyway, he ends this interrogation. I'm thoroughly intimidated. He reads me my rights. I don't know what I'm charged with, if anything, or even suspected of. And the captain leaves the room. The nurse came in, gave me a shot. She left the room. And the head of my bed was near the door. And he put his hand against the door. And he wore this tough guy face, this tough guy affect. And he kind of drops that for a moment and then just looks like an average 50-year-old guy, right? And he gets down next to my ear and he says, "Son, I know, and you 2 knuckleheads stumbled onto something out there, didn't you?" And I didn't answer him. And he said, Oh, I think you know what I mean. I know you know what I mean. And all I want to know is, how many pictures did you take of it? And I want your film and your camera. And this will all go away. And I said, sir, I didn't. I mean, neither one of us had the thought to take a photograph. God, I wish I had. I wish I'd taken 100, you know? But no, never crossed our mind. I said, sir, I didn't take any. Turns the tough guy face back on, says, I don't believe you. And then he left. So he knew. I don't know how he knew, but he knew. I'm convinced of that.
You know, I believe you when you say the camera, that you didn't take a photo. You didn't even think about it. And you know what's funny is on a strange example, when I was driving home from UFO Con, I've never seen elk before. And I'm coming through the mountains because that's the way I got to go home. Coming through the mountains, and in my high beams, I see about 20 elk about 100 yards in front of me. So I slow down right on the highway and I watch. And David Weatherly, I don't know if you know who David is, but he's a fantastic investigator and researcher and author. When I told him this story, he goes, did you take a picture? And I said, no. He goes, why not? I said, I just wanted to enjoy the moment. Didn't even think about it. He goes, same as experiencers. We just want to let it soak into our minds that we are having that real life experience. So I believe you when you say you didn't take any photos.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I meant when I said that I felt more like an observer than a participant. You know, I would call it like almost like a mild disinterest, you know, just short of apathy, you know, just kind of watching the thing play out. So, yeah.
Well, I want to ask you this. Considering you were visited by the men in blue instead of the men in black, have you ever seen any of those gentlemen again who came to get your statement?
Yes. I saw them a second time about 6 weeks later when I was called into the OSI office for an interrogation. That's when I found out that when I was in the hospital, they laid out forms for me to sign on my tray table. And I signed a consent. I asked him, I said, sir, what are these? You know, I mean, my eyes, I can barely see. And he said, son, these are waivers and consent forms. These give us the right, you waive certain rights, and this gives us the right to take a look in your home and make sure you don't have a big bag of marijuana in your home. You don't have a big bag of marijuana in your home, do you, son? And I said, no, sir. He says, well, you don't have anything illegal, do you? You don't have anything, you know, photographs of nuclear sites or firearms or anything you're not supposed to have. You don't have anything like that, do you? I said, no, sir. He said, well, then you wouldn't mind if I take a look. We'll just take a look around. I'm not going to hurt anything. So, interesting, they took my car and kept it for 2 days, brought it back to me detailed. I mean, you know, there was no armor on the wheels, but I mean, other than that, this car was clean. They came into the house. They said they had a consent to search. They gave my wife a copy of the form that I signed and scared the hell out of her. And they went into my dark room and went through all my negatives and all my prints. And like I said, you can't take a lot of pictures when you live on a nuclear base, but I had a nice big telephoto lens, and I took some cool pictures of the moon. You know, they took every picture of the moon that I had and the negative. So they
damn military.
They did a hypnosis. One of the forms I signed was captioned consent to hypnotic regression with chemical enhancement or something like that. And what they did was they gave me a drug called sodium amytal. And I resisted the hypnosis as best as I could. But the drug I had no control over.
Right.
And
basically that truth serum we hear all about.
Yeah. Sodium amytal. It's a short-acting hypnotic. So they have to keep giving it to you. But boy, it'll take you back. It sure took me back. I remember the first thing he asked me, he says, you and Toby went on a little camping trip, didn't you? I said, yes, sir. And he says, and you saw some funny lights in the sky. I said, yeah. And he says, but they weren't funny lights, were they, Terry? I said, no, they weren't. And he said, tell me who they were, Terry. And I said, they were the space people. And I could not believe that came out of my mouth. I mean, I was stunned that came out of my mouth. But you know, when he's asking me questions, I'm seeing this stuff again in my mind's eye with clarity, you know. And he brought up some memories that had he not brought up, I don't think I'd have remembered. So.
Wow.
But the thing they asked me at the end of this, they put me through all of this, and what did you see, what did you hear? And I told them, and then the question was, when you spoke to these agents, you said you didn't take any photographs. Is that the truth? And I said, yes, sir. And he says, it's true that you didn't take a single picture. And I said, that's true. I did not take a single picture. And he says, why didn't you take a picture? I said, I never thought of it. And he seemed satisfied with that. And then that was it, you know. And then the OSI agent said, well, we'll close your file. You know, you can go back to work. And I went back to work, finished my enlistment, and got out, went to school.
Unbelievable.
You know?
Unbelievable. Are you still affected today by the military?
Well, yeah.
We only got about a minute here.
No, not by the military. The military was a job, more or less. I mean, I was fortunate. I was never in a combat situation or anything where I was in real danger. I mean, we worked some plane crashes that were kind of dangerous, but you know. But the only thing I have is you know, PTSD from compliments of ET. You know.
Oh yeah. I want to bring you on again because to me, with the humans on there that looked in military uniforms, that almost sounds like a MyLab or an MK Ultra scenario. But we're going to have to do that once again. We're just going to have to check it on out. Terry Lovelace, what a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio tonight. The honor is all of ours to hear your incredible story, Incident at Devil's Den, which can be found on Amazon and your website, terrylovelace.com. Wow, my friend. Absolutely wow. You made my jaw drop quite a bit tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure to be your guest.
All right, my friend. I
appreciate it.
You hold on here for a second because I got to start to wrap this thing up here. Big thanks to Terry Lovelace. We're going to do the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave tomorrow on Facebook and Twitter. So make sure you check that on out. We really appreciate it. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Special thanks to everybody in our chat rooms tonight on Revolution Radio, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, the SOR Space Travelers Club on our website, everybody in YouTube, and the Snarkers and Starcats on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a great night, everybody. Varla Ventura, Thursday night. We're getting into the cryptid world. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Come join us everywhere, including YouTube. Have a great night. Good night. All right, my friend, just give me 2 seconds here. We're still live on YouTube, by the way. Terry, that was absolutely phenomenal, man. Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Holy cow. I am like blown away. Blown away. Are you okay now? Or are you still being taken?
You know, April 16th, 2019, I was taken. Yeah. But other than that, no, I've not been bothered. You know, the only thing that I got bothered with was, and that's what got TTSA involved and Lou out to my house last year was, and I know this sounds cliche too, but I had these helicopters, you know, flying over my house, buzzing my house. And I mean, doing donuts over my house and then flying off. And, you know, I went outside, you know, at first my wife it was like a joke, you know, my wife's like, oh, I guess they rerouted the traffic copter over our house, you know, and, but pretty soon, you know, I figured that out that no, that ain't the case. They're here for, you know, to fly around our house. And they would come between 9 and 10 in the morning. And that's usually when the sun would be up on low on the eastern horizon, and there was a big tree in my front yard. So my field of view was limited to about 180 degrees. And I would see these helicopters go buzzing by. And so I knew that I wanted to find out who owned them. So I know how to do this. I looked up the federal law, and federal law says that, you know, if you're a helicopter, you have to display an N number, like in Nancy. Display the alphabetical symbol N followed by a numerical sequence that identifies that particular vehicle. So, and it has to be visible.
Right.
So I go out with my phone, I start taking pictures of these helicopters. And there are no markings on them anywhere. They're just, and there are 3. You know, my friend, Dr. Brian, who you should talk to, before he got his education, he was in the Army and he flew helicopters.
Okay.
So, and his wife is a current helicopter instructor. So I took pictures of all these helicopters. I got 189 pictures of helicopters over about a 9-month period. And I sent them to him. And he noticed that they all have a weird light anomaly on them.
Right.
And they were broken down. They're either Airbus 350s or Robertson R-22, Robertson R-44s, or just flat military helicopters. And so when I took these pictures and I put them on my monitor, I got a big screen.
Mm-hmm.
I start seeing UFOs in the background. I mean, I can see like a disc, and that's what I sent to Lou. And Lou wanted to see the helicopters, so he came out last year and spent 2 days with a camera guy there. So, and he's, like I said, he's going to come Wednesday to film me for Unidentified.
Remember to pull on Lou's chin hair for me.
I'm going to do it.
Give him I want a photo of that. Do not forget to take a photo of that. I want that photo.
I'll get it to you.
Hey, a gentleman named Ted in our chat room asked me to ask you about Betty.
Yes. Betty is an entity.
Oh, yeah?
It's the last chapter in my book. And it's, for most people, it's difficult to believe.
Yeah.
I know.
Hey, I have Carl, man.
Okay. Yeah, we've all got a handler. I've talked to lots of people, and everybody's got a handler, and Betty's my handler. And this is the same woman that used to take me when I was a kid.
Right.
And November of 2017, I wake up sitting bolt upright in my chair in my living room. Now, like I said, I'd never sleepwalked once in my life. And I got that feeling of calm again, that familiar, like I had in 1977. I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to, go for a gun or, hit the alarm And seated directly across from me is what I took to be a petite Asian woman. And she wore black, with black shoes and black high heels, oversized sunglasses, and a black wig. And the wig was all kind of askew on her head because she had this bulbous back of her head. And this wig was obviously made for a human head, not for her head. But the way with the clothes and the long sleeves covering her fingers, she could walk the streets of Houston and not get, much more than a second look. And she's sitting right across from me. And I thought, my God, what are you doing here? Who are you? And is this about the thing in my leg? And I didn't say it verbally. It's the first thought that crossed my mind. And I heard back inside my head, crystal clarity. I heard, yes, it's about the things in your leg. And my thought was, what are they? What purpose do they serve? And she didn't answer my question. She said they have many purposes. And she told me that I shouldn't write a book and talk about this thing in my leg. Because at the time, I was thinking about going to Mexico and having a surgeon in Mexico take this thing out of my leg. And she told me, she said, if you continue to talk, and I fired back at her, well, what's the big deal? Hundreds of people write books. What's the big deal? And she told me that the thing that's above my knee can't fall into the hands of terrestrial scientists. She said it's not allowed. And that if I continue in this vein, that they'll come back, she referred to them as her hosts. Like the word HOSTS, hosts, which has lots of different meanings. I mean, it can be a verb, it can be a noun, you can host a dinner party, you can be a host. And I'm like, who are your hosts? And she says, you call them aliens, I call them my host. They're not alien to me.
Right.
And I'm like, all right. And that's the long and the short of it is that I call her Betty because when she took the glasses off, I had the thought, I wish she'd take those glasses off, and she took them right off her head. And she looked like Betty Rubble. I swear to God, she looked like remember the cartoon character
yes,
Betty?
Absolutely.
On the Flintstones?
Absolutely.
And that's where I came up with the name Betty. But I realized that I knew her as Sue when I was a little kid.
Okay.
And that's where these monkeys would take me. They'd take me to this big room with other kids, and we'd play with stuff with these geometric forms and stuff. And I knew her from back then. And I say in my book, and I don't know where it comes from, but I have an affinity for her.
Yes.
Not romantic, but almost a maternal.
Yeah, you care about her.
I do. And I don't know where that comes from. So. Well,
maybe she is one of your guardian angels.
Could be. I didn't see her in 1977, so she wasn't there for that. But other than I've had a pretty decent life. I haven't had a lot of misfortune in my life, so maybe she is. I don't know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. I wouldn't doubt that.
You know, true story, back in 2013, when our little guy was only about, I'm going to say less than 2 months old. Okay? Less than 2-3 months old. And we put him down in our bed to sleep because we were still awake. And all of a sudden, Terry, over the intercom, we start hearing a woman's voice saying, "You're such a good boy. You're such a handsome boy. Sleep well, my love. You are so loved." All of this kind of stuff. And so I immediately, Papa Bear, walk into my own master bedroom, wondering who is in there with my child, and there is nobody there. Now, the master bedroom was at the end of the hallway, and there was another bedroom there. There was no exit to the outside unless you were jumping out the window, which was on the second floor. And I ended up having a conversation with this lady who basically said that she was one of my son's guardian angels, and that he was, her job was to walk him through the first 2 years of his life.
Wow.
And
you and Chris Bledsoe are going to have one heck of a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be listening to that.
That's why Bob McGuire, you met Bob at the conference.
Yeah, sure.
That's why Bob hasn't even heard these stories yet. I weirded him out so much at the conference that Bob he was like, "Dude, we need to talk." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got no problem with that. I got no problem with that whatsoever." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Had that happen. That was kind of interesting. That one.
That's amazing. I come away from this thing when I look at it in its totality with Bigfoot and ghosts and angels and spaceships and interdimensional beings and all of it. I got to think that there's a web of commonality. It's all 100%. It's all interconnected somewhere.
100%. It is totally connected. And the screwed up part about it, Terry, is the majority of people in this field who are so-called paranormal investigators or cryptid investigators or whatever you want to call them. Okay? There are very extreme few who are actually looking into this connection between everything, and they are missing the boat. And they don't want to understand that there is a major connection between all of this stuff, all of it.
You can focus on UFOs and just dive into it, and then that's your area, and it's just too much for one person to soak up.
Yeah.
And the more you dig into this stuff, Jules Verne, who I liked to read when I was a kid, Jules Verne said one time, "If you stare into the void long enough, it'll stare back at you."
Yes.
And I thought that's a really cool saying, because that's so true.
Oh, for sure.
The deeper you get into it.
For sure. My friend, I know you're getting tired, so I will let you go, but we definitely have to do this again. Definitely have to.